Hey, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. Tonight's stream is an open stream. The phone lines are open. Come and talk to me, debate me, tell me something I don't know, tell me about your life, give me feedback, entertain me, whatever you want to do. We're having an open stream tonight, so let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
All righty, everybody. So glad you're here tonight. A lot is going on, but we are having an open stream tonight. We are currently waiting for a very, very big drop that is on its way from CPI. Can't say what it is, but good things take some time. So keep your eye out for that. And yeah, tonight is an open stream. Anyone can join. The link has been tweeted out. The link is right here. And you can just come on. Obviously, if things get weird, I'll boot people out. But this is just kind of an open conversation. It's been a while since I've done an open stream. And usually I don't do it this way. Usually I just open it up. It's for people that are already watching. But tonight I thought, what the heck? Let's just bring everybody in. But like I said, obviously, there are certain limitations to where conversations can go, etc. But yeah, so there's a couple people waiting in the studio right now to come in. Quick couple things. First of all, if you want me to bring you in, you need to turn your webcam on so I can see your face, so I know who I'm bringing on. And then obviously certain limits on where the conversation goes, etc. So I guess we'll just start with the first person. Join the stream. That's the link to join the stream. It's in the description. It's on Twitter. It's in the chat. More the merrier, right? Just pile them on in. Let's just have conversations. Hello. How you doing? Hi, you are Rifat? Is that your name?
Yes, thank you.
All right. What's on your mind tonight, Rifat?
I just want to say I'm actually quite terrified of the recent just election campaign and everything. I don't like Trump. I don't like Harris either. They cause a lot of Islamophobia. They cause a lot of scapegoating of Muslims. And I just want to know, what will the CPI do to protect Muslims from persecution?
Well, the main thing, I think, is that we need to do outreach into the Trumper sphere, because that seems to be the worst thing about the Trump movement, is this blind support for Israel, demonization of Muslims as terrorists and such, right? And that's why it's important that we don't just reinforce the polarization, right? And like, I made a video. Did you see the video I did about Donald Trump and how he brought those Muslim leaders on stage with him in Michigan?
Actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just show it. This is a recent video that I did, for YouTube about this issue. I think, yeah. Let me just hold on. Yeah, I'll show it. This was my recent. I've been doing short videos lately, to accompany the streams, and so I did one video. I did one on this topic. It was a short clip I did. It was released on November 14th, so last week. It was just 4 minutes. So yeah, I'll put it on. This was and you can give me your thoughts on it. Are you living in the United States currently?
I'm currently in Canada, actually.
Oh, okay. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, let me put on, this was the video I recently did, Trump's best moment during his campaign. And I noticed, well, anyway, we'll react to it afterwards. You can tell me what you think. Here we go. I wanted to talk about what I thought was the greatest moment in Donald Trump's presidential campaign that showed real political bravery on Donald Trump's part. And that was when Donald Trump invited Muslim leaders from Michigan onto the stage at his rally.
The most wonderful thing is happening. We're winning overwhelming support from the Muslim and Arab voters right here in Michigan. Can you believe it?
We are supporting Donald Trump because he promised to end war in the Middle East and Ukraine. The bloodshed has to stop all over the world, and I think this man can make that happen. I personally believe that God saved his life twice for a reason.
Now, somebody watching this might say, well, Caleb, that's no big deal. They already said that they were voting for him. And Donald Trump wanted as many votes as he could get, especially in states like Michigan, so it's no big deal. Well, you have to look at how many wealthy Zionists were funding Donald Trump's campaign. And those wealthy Zionists hate Muslims, absolutely hate Muslims. I mean, I live in New York City, and I used to work at an insurance company, and I got to tell you, these people think Islam should be outlawed. They say it's not really a religion, it's a terrorist cult.
You are terrorists. Every one of you are terrorists. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. You can smile at me, you can say whatever you want, but every Muslim is a terrorist. Hitler didn't want to exterminate the Jews at the time. He wanted to expel the Jews. And Haj Amin al-Husseini went to Hitler and said, if you expel them, they'll all come here. So what should I do with them? He asked. He said, burn them.
Because they want to kill us. And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. I'm sorry I don't take a risk with people that are taught to kill Americans at 2. I'm on the side of Israel.
One of my coworkers, when I worked at the insurance company, her son wouldn't go to a movie theater in New York City because it was near a mosque, and he had been brainwashed at his Zionist school that he might be blown up inside the movie theater just because the movie theater was next to a mosque. You know, the hatred that Zionists, wealthy Zionists, have for Muslims is astounding. And for Donald Trump, who, you know, was getting backed and supported by a lot of wealthy Zionists like Sheldon Adelson, to take the bold move of inviting Muslims onto the stage at his rally and embracing them and welcoming their support, that was huge.
And earlier today, I had an incredible meeting, a great meeting. You know what they want? They want peace. They're great people. With a group of Muslim imams. And like everyone here today, Muslim and Arab voters in Michigan, and you know, they're going to be they could turn the election.
And it put Trump at risk. I'm sure there were a lot of wealthy Zionists who really didn't appreciate Donald Trump doing that. But Donald Trump knew that there was a lot of dissatisfaction with Kamala Harris among Muslim Americans. And I think Donald Trump very much does in his own way. He doesn't agree with me, I'm sure, but in his own way, he would like to see the conflict in Gaza ended. Now, he obviously doesn't share my views on it, and he doesn't share the views of those Muslims there. But I think Donald Trump would like to be remembered as a guy who made peace around the world. So he made the bold decision of bringing Muslims onto the stage at his rally, pro-Palestine Muslims, and embracing and celebrating and welcoming their support. And I think that was a great move for Donald Trump, and it was political bravery. It put him at odds with a lot of important donors and backers of his campaign, but it was the right thing to do, and it was also what was going to get him the votes he needed to win. What do you think?
Wow. Yeah, I didn't see that clip, so that was a huge surprise. Caleb, I always respect you as a true Marxist-Leninist. So lots of respect for that, and I respect your support for Donald Trump. Actually, I think I'm sort of warming up to him. My parents actually warmed up to him. They said
Mhm.
that he's way better than Kamala Harris as a candidate, and you know he won. So I think we're actually going to see some better things happening in the U.S.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that I have said, and I mean, I don't know what hope there is. If there's going to be any improvement of U.S.-Iran relations, Trump has to apologize for killing Qasem Soleimani. And I don't know if he'll ever do that, but that would be absolutely, he would have to do that because there is a blood feud. I mean, you can't murder the top general, the national hero of a country, you know, and then expect to have no retaliation. You know what I'm saying? And you know, and all this coverage. First of all, I don't think Iran is trying to kill Trump. That's hype from the FBI to serve foreign policy agendas to psych up Trumpers against Iran. But that said, the idea that Iranians might want to kill Trump. I mean, think about what they did. You know, I mean, think about what Donald Trump did. He murdered Qasem Soleimani. But the two guys who pushed Trump to do that, John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, stabbed Trump in the back, right? And those two people are not going to be part of his administration. John Bolton was against Trump in the election. Mike Pompeo supported Trump, but Trump has already announced he'll have no role in the administration. And Mike Pompeo supported prosecuting Trump for the classified documents incident. And now it's been revealed that John Bolton and Mike Pompeo also prevented Trump from meeting with Maduro. Trump was going to meet with Maduro at the United Nations when the UN happened, his first UN General Assembly. And Anya Parampil has revealed that Maduro and Trump had this planned meeting that Mike Pompeo and John Bolton axed. They prevented it. So I'm excited because it seems like Trump is leaning in to the kind of people that that were the ones that were pushing against some of the bad things he did as president, and that he's removed a lot of the people that were pushing him to do those bad things. Now, Marco Rubio, I don't like Marco Rubio at all, right? Marco Rubio is certainly an exception to that. And I really hope that Marco Rubio, I mean, I hope something happens and he's not Secretary of State. But Matt Gaetz is very much, you know, he's very much at odds with the government. He's a questioner of the Ukraine policy. And, you know, Tulsi Gabbard, you know, she is a blind supporter of Israel, absolutely. But you'll notice she also went to Syria and embraced the Syrian president, which I think is a big deal. You know what I mean? That's
a supporter of Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah, and that's interesting as well. And then she also made statements about the Iran nuclear deal. She wasn't against it at the time. You know, she thought it was a good idea. She's sympathetic to North Korea and all of that, and that she has a different approach. Now, Max Blumenthal has pointed out that a lot of conservatism incorporated is funded by these Zionists, right? These lower level Zionists. And I then know somebody, I can't say who had a job with a conservative, like Republican organization. And like he had a very small Twitter account. He got fired from his job just because he tweeted against Israel. I mean, you know, there is so much control over anything Republican by Zionists. But at the same time, you know, your typical Trumper doesn't support Israel. I mean, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, you know, there is a lot of dissent among the ranks. And then you listen to you look at the chat of any Alex Jones stream. So it's going to be complicated. I'm not telling people we should expect Donald Trump's presidency is going to be amazing. It's going to be an uphill battle because there's going to be all kinds of different forces pushing on him. But I feel like we have a lot more of an opportunity to push good policies under Trump. You know what I mean? We have the opportunity to intervene. That's kind of my feeling. You know what I'm saying? But that's where I'm at. So, yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. I do appreciate it. Anything else you want to say?
I just wanted to say, yeah, as a Marxist-Leninist, I have a question.
Okay.
What can we do to court the conservatives? The conservatives, and I don't care about the liberals. I hate the liberals. The conservatives specifically, like the people who are working people who believe in God and land and all of that stuff. Like, what do you do with them?
We need to build an effective machine to fight the deep state, right? To mobilize when the deep state goes after Trump, when the deep state goes after Tulsi Gabbard or whatever, we need to have an effective machine that can carry out operations on the other side, right? And at the same time, we need to show that when they're at odds with imperialism, we're on their side, and on that basis bring them in, and that is ultimately what we need to do. We need to learn to carry out such operations. So thank you very much, and it was a pleasure. I hope you join it another time, and good luck up in Canada. Thanks.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yep. All right. Who is next? Okay, I see. So just so you know, I see one person has their camera on, and I'm going to bring him on because he has his camera on. But I see there's 3 other people that are waiting. Just turn your cameras on so I can bring you on. You got to turn your cameras on. So yeah, pitchforks are coming. You got to turn your camera on. Future dude, you got to turn your camera on. Someone else is changing their shirt, so I'm bringing on Phil. Phil, how you doing?
Hey, Caleb, how are you?
I'm good. Just having an open stream. Anyone can join. So here you are. You're in Brooklyn. How are things going?
Everything's going okay. Just relaxing from my little trip that I had to take on Friday.
Yeah, you're recovering, right? You had a seizure, right? You said,
yeah,
right?
2 of them. 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But everything's going better. I have an appointment with the doctor this week, and everything's going better. So just really quick, if I may, shout out to the Chicago CPI team, especially Gabby, who sent me the wonderful message, wishing me well and that I get better. So
very good. Yeah, Gabby is awesome. She's a great member of our community, and the Chicago folks had a great time with you out well. Noah is wishing you to stay well. So there you go.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, Phil, for your hard work that you did with the Peace MAGA operation here in New York. That was, you were in the streets with us 3 times, with that banner. Thank you very much. It made a difference.
It was my pleasure. And I can't wait until January 20th when we're down for the inauguration.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I am looking forward to January 20th, trying to figure out the logistics of the event and all of that. Well, stay well, Phil. Keep resting.
I do have a question. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
If you could explain for those who may not know what the socialized medicine system is like, and do you think it might work here in the United States?
I do. So, there are different words that get thrown around, and the healthcare debate is always very confusing. For a long time, Democrats said they were for universal healthcare, and that just means everyone's insured, but they might be paying different things for it. And then Bernie Sanders, he was for what they have in Canada, which is Medicare for all, meaning there's one insurance plan that is run by the government. It's not private insurance, right? So you, out of your paycheck, you pay insurance, but the hospitals are still private and all of that. In Britain, they have what's called national health care, where the government owns the hospitals. All the doctors are government employees. And so if you're a British citizen, you go to the hospital, you get your medical care, and it's run by the state. It's completely state controlled. And then I would consider like socialist healthcare to be something that exists in the context of like an overall planned economy, right? Like something like they had in Cuba or China or other places, which might include some private stuff, but it's overall part of a state central plan. And these words get thrown around, but Medicare for all would be a great thing because so many people need to have health insurance and they don't have it, right? National health care, I would be okay with. And the British medical system has been quite successful. I mean, there's flaws in different places and they're fighting against the cuts in it right now. So yeah, I mean, it is the way healthcare works. We pay way more as a country and we get way worse service. It's not working. It's clearly not working. So I would be for anything to improve that situation. And Obamacare was supposed to fix things, and it was a disaster. Obamacare, I guess the only thing that Obamacare did is get rid of the pre-existing conditions thing. It used to be that they could not insure you because of a pre-existing condition. Now they can't do that. So that was like one improvement. But Obamacare was a huge disappointment, in my opinion. So there you go.
Yeah. With Obamacare, you'll die before you get any kind of health care. And I do know, or I've been told, I should say, that in Canada, that I used to work for EMS here in New York City. And up in Canada, if you call the emergency service number for an ambulance, and it's not an emergency, they arrest you.
Mm.
And here in the United States, you actually have the right to call for an ambulance and be transported to the hospital, whether it's an emergency or not. If you feel that it's an if the person feels it's an emergency, they have the right under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act to be transported to the hospital. And I don't know if you've seen, on social media and, in Google, there have been videos about the New York City EMS system that people are calling and it's not an emergency. And there's not enough ambulances in New York City because of that to care for people. Yeah, to care for people who have actual medical emergencies.
Well, I was just talking to my family from Ohio, and they were talking about how if you live in a rural area and you get shot in the head or something like that, just forget it. Because by the time you get to an emergency room that can treat you with trauma and all that, with a trauma center or whatever, you're dead. And like access to healthcare is shutting down, and we don't have the medical personnel that we used to have. There's a shortage of nurses. It's like healthcare in this country is a disaster. Now, Phil, you're in the United States, and so every person who comes on from the United States, I'm asking them if they have joined CPI, but I know you already have because I saw your name on the list. So welcome to CPI. You're a dues paying member. Good to have you, and thank you. And I'm sure I will see you on church next Sunday, if not beforehand. So all my best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Very good. Always good to check in with Phil. All right. Who are we bringing in next? All right. Okay. Grady. Welcome, Grady. How you doing? Can't hear you. Yeah, must be something wrong with your mic, Grady. Fix your mic. I'll bring you back. Just fix your mic. All right. Micah. Good to hear you. How you doing, Micah?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, good to see you. Good to finally meet you, Caleb.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm from Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay.
I'm a graduate student at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and I currently work for the International Rescue Committee, fundraising to get medical aid into Gaza because of how horrible the genocide is right now.
Good work.
Right now, as I'm working on a paper about communists and the Civil War, I remember in one of your streams you were talking about August Willich and Joseph Weydemeyer organizing against the Confederacy. And I was wondering which one of your books details communist troops with the red flag on the battlefield. I might have misheard you, but I was wondering which book you read because I wanted to cite that for a paper that I'm writing.
Well, I think there's a biography of August Willich, right, called Marx's General, something like that. Marx's General. I read it a while back. Yeah, I think it's called Marx's General. It's pretty good. Also, William Z. Foster's History of the Communist Party. History of the Communist Party has a couple sections about the early Marxists and their role in the U.S. Civil War. So that's where I would recommend you start. But there is a biography of August Willich. And Joseph Weydemeyer. William Z. Foster's History of the Communist Party. Yeah. There's also there's biographies of Joseph Weydemeyer also, right? Joseph Weydemeyer. And actually, Joseph Weydemeyer, his rank wasn't as high as August Willich's rank, but he actually played a much bigger role and was a much more pivotal figure. I think he was the leader of the Ohio 9th Infantry Regiment. He played a much more battlefield-oriented role, and I think he was a prominent labor activist in the aftermath of the Civil War as well. So it's kind of an interesting, but I guess at that time, around the time of the Civil War, the stereotype of Germans was that they were all radicals, because there were so many Germans who had fled from the 1848 revolution that there was a stereotype that Germans were all like bomb-throwing extremists and radicals. Back in those days, which is pretty wild. So yeah. Yeah, but no, I mean that's important history. I mean, I wonder. I'm trying to transition in how I talk about things because we're trying to be strategic and all of that. But I would watch Dinesh D'Souza has these cringe, horrible documentaries about how well, the Marxists believed in, or the Democrats, they're racist and they believed in slavery because they're Marxists, and it's just like, no, God, I mean, it's just like, how ignorant can you be of U.S. history on so many levels? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's just so bad. It's so bad. So, well, great work you're doing with the International Rescue Committee. Yeah, and I mean, is there any hope? I see that in Israel things are getting weird with Netanyahu. Like, there's people that want him out of office, and that the floodwaters are rising around him. But that's probably going to cause him to be as vicious as he can as long as he's still in there, right?
Yeah, well, they've been targeting a lot of aid workers and journalists. They've killed hundreds of aid workers. Even just about a week or two ago, some of the aid workers that work with the IRC got bombed. So another eight aid workers got killed.
Wow.
And in 3 months, Netanyahu announced that he wants to kick out pretty much the United Nations and all of the aid workers, so that he can just go on another bombing spree and just cleanse the hell out of Gaza. And they're stepping up their attacks in the West Bank too. So it's a real. It's a real horrible thing that's going on. I'm American Indian and Hawaiian, and we've been subject to genocide in the past, and we're struggling for sovereignty in various ways. And that's why I quit my old job to join the IRC right now, just because of how critical the situation is. I also have a lot of experience in organizing in the past with raising the minimum wage with the 15 Now movement. I don't like socialist alternative and the Trotskyites very much. I'm more in line with you on a lot of these issues, but I was also just wondering, is being here in Seattle, like, what's going on with CPI here in Washington? Because I really want to organize this thing with you, man.
Well, I was going to ask you. I'm asking everyone who comes on from the United States. Have you joined yet? Go to the website and join. Go ahead. CPIUSA.org. You can become a member. We do have people out there, and we can connect you. Obviously, if you're in part of the mainstream left circles, you're going to have to be discreet because we're hated and canceled and stuff like that. But yeah, just sign up on the website, and we will certainly connect you, because we have people in that region for sure and in that area. And we had a convention in Portland last December, and we've certainly got people out there. So I'd love to connect you, and you sound like somebody we'd love to work with. Let me ask you also, I know that there is a Hawaiian independence movement that is like Marxist and stuff. Do you know about this? I don't know much about it. I do know there were like Maoist communists in Hawaii for a while and stuff.
It's very, very small, but I will say, like, the Hawaiian independence movement is really nuanced, even though we're a constitutional monarchy. Sun Yat-sen was a part of a lot of the formation of the Hawaiian kingdom as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We're not forming it as much, but he was educated actually in Hawaii during the kingdom, and we have a lot of we have a lot of democracy within it. I mean, UK is like a kingdom, but we don't consider them the kind of despotism as other countries. So we still had a legislature and a lot of socialistic economic principles as well.
Wow.
So, and actually, I would say the best guy right now to know more about the Hawaiian independence movement, or at least the history, is a guy named Keanu Sai. He's a Hawaiian political scientist at the University of Hawaii, and he's really transforming a lot of the knowledge that we have about this right now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I read the book Overthrow by Stephen Kinzer, where he talks about various coups, and he talks about the invasion of Hawaii, right, and how the USA invaded. And I guess the trick was they sent Christian missionaries there, and then they made up fake news about them being persecuted, and so then they invaded to protect them or something, right? Is that what happened?
I mean, I think more of I would say it's not really there's been some problems with the missionaries, but we actually don't really have an adversarial relationship with Christianity. It's kind of like Mexico in a sense, where like a lot of the old, because most Hawaiians are Christian, I'm Christian, and ultimately a lot of the old beliefs, kind of get merged with the new knowledge that came in. I think more of this part, what radicalized me too, just even as a young kid, was that ultimately it was the foreign capitalists that came in, and with the sugar plantations, and they just conspired against the queen, and then they brought in Gatling guns and pointed the Gatling guns at the palace, and conspired with the U.S. troops to dissolve our government, and then bring in racism. So actually, that's why We have the youngest Chinatown in the United States because
Wow.
ultimately, because we didn't have a racially segregated system, the Chinatown got built after World War II.
Wow. Well, it was really great for you to come on and share that information. Good luck with your paper that you're writing. I look forward to having you as a member of CPI. We'll connect you for sure. And all my best wishes, Micah. Best wishes out in Seattle. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to bring in someone that is a dues-paying member of CPI. Ellen, how you doing, Ellen?
Yeah. Hey, Caleb.
Hey, what's happening? How you been? How's Chicago?
It's good. Thank you. Actually, I haven't paid my dues yet, but I will be. And I'm so glad to have met you. And when you came here to Illinois, and we are going to be getting a strong team going here. So specifically, I know tonight is questions night, and so
yeah, just anything on your mind. Go ahead. Speak.
I really am so impressed by your incredible knowledge of history and, a lot of the subjects that I investigate, the deep state, but specifically, I think we have to somehow figure out a way to hold Israel and accountable.
Yeah.
And specifically, I'm writing now about, I realized the way the Zionim, these are the people of the Mossad, and they're kind of the helpers of the Mossad, but there's reportedly thousands of them, whose job is to smear people like me for being, anybody who criticizes them, investigates them, blows a whistle on them, as being anti-Semitic. And it's like been so hard to do. I even got pushed off the ballot for the Green Party as being anti-Semitic, simply by saying the reason I wanted to run for Congress is to, fight corruption of our Congress from within. All of our institutions have been infiltrated by the AIPAC, the Zionist lobby, and it's not in the news. It's like we've got to find a way to stop it. And so, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that, how we can do it.
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing that I think, right, and we need to change the culture of those of us who are anti-imperialist, because we're way too competitive. And if we see somebody getting dogpiled on social media and we have a little disagreement with them, or we disagree with this or whatever, we join it. You know what I'm saying? And that has got to stop, right? We have got to realize that, if someone's getting hundreds of people tweeting at them, calling them a bad name, it's not coming from a good place. It's not a sincere criticism. This is the deep state targeting somebody. Because right now we have this culture where everybody disagrees with somebody. And another thing that needs to change in our culture is that we don't have to fight over every little thing. Jill Stein played an amazing role during this election. Muslims voted for her and not for Kamala Harris. She got endorsed by the Council of American Islamic Relations. She was at the Uhuru trial. But, I didn't like what she said about Assad, didn't like what she said about Putin, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue. She was the center of opposition to Zionist control of the Democrats, opposition to Kamala Harris, opposition to saying we have to vote for the Democrats. And I saw all these people just going after her over what she said about Assad or whatever. We need to not do that. We need to realize that if somebody can play a good role, it's worth, let them make some mistakes, and that we have this culture where we don't think in terms of, of how can we build a solid block of anti-imperialism. We think more in terms of like, I'm trying to get hits and likes and shares on my social media. And that's one thing that needs to change. The other thing that I think needs to change is that we need to get over the left-right divide. Right. I think because I have no loyalty to the left. Right. I really don't. I have a loyalty to anti-imperialism, and I'll work with people that are so-called right wing if they're against imperialism. And if people are on the left and they're pro-imperialist, who cares? Who cares? You know what I mean? And that we need to kind of change the way we focus on things. But yeah, there is a huge amount of the smearing and stuff that goes on. And, we need to just get past that. I will say, though, that, Ellen, I've noticed that, I used to get called anti-Semitic all the time. I don't hear that anymore, and I think that it's actually gotten to the point that because of what Israel has done in Gaza, and because their response to everybody is, oh, you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Semitic. In response to that, it's starting to just wear off. People are just like, oh, you're anti-Semitic, and they just kind of roll their eyes. It's actually interesting. And I've seen people talk about certain issues in ways they never would have talked about them 2-3 years ago. And so I feel like the tide is actually starting to turn on that issue. So there you go.
But we're Israel, who I see and most people see as behind these wars in Ukraine, on Russia and on the Palestinians. It is behind all of that, right? Just historically. And I think we have to get it into courts and, and the Justice Department and fight the corruption of within. And it just seems like they've infiltrated, just Trump's picks now are seem to be like they're going to go at the war worse than ever, right? And they're not going to stop the genocide and the takeover of the world, right? And
at the end of the day, we need to change the balance of forces. We have to build a block of anti-imperialists here in America who can carry out operations, who can intervene. And there's nothing else that can be done. I mean, we have to build an organization. And I know you believe that because you're part of it and you're doing it in Chicago with our CPI people. I had a great time with you at the workshop. I know you're already a CPI member, so thank you. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, Ellen. Keep up the good work. All my best. All my best. That was Ellen out there in Chicago. She is a tremendous person, spent many years struggling for justice and anti-imperialism. All right. So, Grady, I'm going to give you another chance. Hope your mic is working. Grady, how's your mic?
Hello. I think it is working now.
Yes, it is. Yes, very good. Welcome.
That's very good. It's very good to talk to you. But I'm wondering, I think I've been shadow banned from your channel, and I'm wondering why.
Oh, okay. I mean, I have a lot of mods, and sometimes people get caught in the crossfire. When people request that I unban them, I generally do. So, do you have a name in the chat?
Agent Grady.
Agent Grady. Okay, I can go into my YouTube controls and unban.
And I'd ask you a question as well. And I'm wondering if I was shadow banned for it. It's quite strange. I paid you £5 for this question, but of course it was never answered because I was shadow banned.
And what was the question?
Oh, it was about Jackson Hinkle. He was always.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. We don't. Oh
yes, but he was almost murdered.
We just don't talk about. Yeah, we just don't. They have those certain people have been very hostile and negative to us, and so somebody probably saw you asking the question and thought that was a provocation. You know what I'm saying? So that's probably what happened, right?
It was about because he was almost murdered in Venezuela by CIA.
Obviously, I don't support anyone being murdered for their anti-imperialist views or anything like that. So, but yeah, I just that person has been particularly hostile to us, and we just don't go there. So, do you have anything else you'd like to ask me about tonight?
Oh yes, a few things. When you are looking for sort of sources for anti-imperialist information, it can be very difficult. Like I was in a debate with someone, and I brought up the fact that Ukraine had been seeking nuclear weapons, and they said, "Oh, wait, give me a source then." And I was trying to look through the internet, and it was very difficult to get an actual source on that. So, is there any way you would suggest would be a good way to get sort of sources on this?
Well, sure. I mean, Putin actually raised that in the speech that he gave at to launch the special military operation. So what you would want to do is you would want to go to analysis of that speech and then find what he cited in the speech as evidence of that. And I believe it was remarks that were made by Zelensky specifically, if I remember correctly. But that was in Putin's speech announcing the special military operation. He said they are proliferating nuclear weapons. And then there's also the biolabs thing, which is, those are chemical weapons, chemical and biological weapons. Those are not nuclear weapons, but, and it just kind of like the USA can invade Iraq on the other side of the planet based on lying that they were trying to get, weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, everyone admits, including Victoria Nuland, that Ukraine has these labs where they were developing very serious, dangerous weapons of mass destruction aimed at Russia. And, I mean, and actually, if you look at what Russia has put into the United Nations record, like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know if you've heard, but the way that they were doing these chemical weapon, biological weapon research things, they were going to all the mental hospitals and homes for the disabled people in Ukraine, and were doing experiments on them, just like the Nazis did. Right.
Just
I
like
mean, yeah.
Mengele and such.
Yeah, yeah, and that they have they've got testimony from people, they've got actual records from these facilities. I mean, it was like not only were they developing these deadly weapons that are a threat to like global health, but on top of that, they were doing like, Nazi level human experiments and all of that. I mean, Russia has put so much into the United Nations record about Ukrainian war crimes, Ukrainian atrocities, and all of this. And then I would cover these UN meetings, and every time Russia would bring this up, the USA, their response would be like, "Oh, Russia's got more conspiracy theories." And it's just like, wait, are you saying these are forged documents? Like, no rebuttal. It's just, oh, Russia said it, so it must be false, because Russia couldn't possibly ever say anything true. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the level of discourse, and those are probably the people you're arguing with, right? I mean, it's
yeah,
right?
It was much. Yeah, it's my older brother who's a university professor, but he is kind of very biased in his view.
Are you in Britain right now? You said
yes.
5 pounds, so yeah, we're in
yes,
Britain.
I'm in Britain. In Cumbria, in quite a small town.
Okay.
In Cumbria. Yes.
Very good. Very
kind
good.
of
Well,
out of the way place.
well,
one more question.
Sure. One more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When you're talking about what people from the left and right, do you think left and right have any meaning anymore? I mean, people call themselves left wing, but they take such blatantly pro-imperialist views, and then attack you being sort of like as some kind of fascist or Nazi for opposing U.S. foreign wars and regime change efforts.
Did you watch Peter's documentary that he just made about it? It was exquisite. It was tremendous. Did you see Peter Coffin's recent film about horseshoe theory, left and right? It was
yes. I haven't seen that. I should
go and watch. But basically, the bourgeois revolutions were happening, and the left were like the Jacobins, the people that were embracing the bourgeois revolutions, wanted them to go further. The right were the more traditional conservatives, and it really represented a divide in the early capitalist class between the landed aristocracy and the industrialists, right? And that's what left and right originally meant. Right. And the proletarian movement attached itself to the industrialists for whatever reason, simply because they were kind of following the legacy of the bourgeois revolutions. It's like, well, we want to really create liberty, equality, fraternity. And a big thesis of my writing has been that the left is really, it's an aesthetic, it's feelings of rebellion, it's, kind of unleashing impulses and releasing suppressed feelings. And it's, it's the red flag, which is the color of blood and anger and sexual passion. And it's a certain psychological, mindset that was used. It's very effective in overthrowing feudalism, and it was used to overthrow feudalism in Europe, the French Revolution, etc., the Spring of Nations, 1848, which is where the communist movement comes from. Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto was written for the Spring of Nations in 1848. Marx's faction was the Communist League and all of that, and also around the world, right? I mean, many of the countries that have started on the road to socialism were dismantling a semi-feudal system. But my feeling is that now the left aesthetic, not the economics of leftism, but the left aesthetic has actually become the main way the imperialists are spreading instability because of the color revolution apparatus, right? And that the aesthetic and the psychology of leftism, divorced from any economic theories or whatever, has just kind of become a vehicle that the imperialists can use. They've kind of co-opted it. Meanwhile, the actual socialist countries tend to be quite conservative because they're offering stability in opposition to the chaos of the market, imperialism, and all of that. And so left and right don't really make sense anymore. And I've spent years developing this thesis. In the City Builders book, I talk about this, and that, the divide between Stalin and Trotsky. Trotsky was much more of a leftist, right? He was very much his permanent revolution, and he very much admired the revolutionary intelligentsia of the West. And Stalin had gone to a seminary school, and he kind of set up a model for Russia that was kind of an odd synthesis of the very radical ideas of the Bolsheviks and the very traditional conservative feelings of the Russian peasantry. And he kind of created a synthesis of it that was largely influenced by his seminary training. This is something I've spent a long time thinking about, and it just kind of leads to the conclusion that left and right really don't mean anything anymore at this point, and that we should be anti-imperialist and we should be pro-economic growth. That's really important. We should be pro-economic growth. We should want to raise living standards, increase the population, increase the life expectancy, and we should be against the imperialist system, this dying imperialist system, of big banks and monopolies ruling the world that they're trying to save with a Malthusian degrowth scheme in World War III. We should be against it. And that really doesn't make us particularly loyal to the left or the right of imperialism. That just makes us, adherents of a certain, set of principles. What I also think is interesting is that, everybody knows about the Popular Front when the communists aligned with the liberals and the social democrats against fascism. But prior to the Popular Front, in the early 1930s, you had the Third Period. And during that period, the communists focused on fighting social democrats. Their focus was on opposing the social democrats as the main roadblock to revolution. They called them social fascists, etc. And also during that period, Stalin was courting right-wing industrialists. Henry Ford went to the Soviet Union. General Electric, Henry Morgan, went to the Soviet Union. And that during those years, Stalin said the imperialist left was the main danger. And the right-wing industrial factory owners he had an alliance with. And then when those right-wing industrial factory owners became fascist and Hitler came to power, then they flipped and suddenly they were aligned with them. But there was always a feeling they had no loyalty to either the left or the right of imperialism. They were always kind of doing their own thing. And that's what I feel our orientation should be. Long-winded spiel. What do you think?
I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I did North Korean studies as a master's at my university, and one of the things it was a very biased course, by the way. I mean, it was run by South Koreans, so of course they had a very anti-DPRK perspective. But one of the documents I looked at how Kim Il-sung appealed to the peasantry by not pushing forward liberal social programs or liberal in his revolutionary movement, in his guerrilla movement, because the peasants would get suspicious that the communists are just like trying to steal women from them, or like try and get women to be too libertine or loose. So they had to appeal to the peasant kind of in order to get them aboard.
Indeed. Well, Grady, you are not in the United States, so I'm not going to ask you to join CPI, but I hope that you continue to engage with our work and support it, and I wish you a lot of luck in your continued work. You sound like a very well-read and a thoughtful anti-imperialist thinker out over there in the United Kingdom. So I wish you my best. All well. Talk to you soon.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. It's been good talking to you.
Absolutely. Very good. All right. Now we're going to bring on Carter. How you doing, Carter? Hey, unmute. You got to unmute.
Hey,
there we go. Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
What's
how
new?
How you doing this Monday night?
I'm doing okay. I'm very excited about the big drop that we're about to do. We're not saying anything about it, obviously, but there's a big drop coming up from CPI. People are reminding me to unban Grady, which I will do. So no problem. But we'd love to have Grady in the chat. So thank you for the reminder, folks. But yeah, are you in your college dorm? That looks like a dorm to me.
No, don't live in no dorm. I'm pretty close to school, so I just drive.
Oh, okay. Very, very good. Very, very good. And so let me ask, you always have historical questions. That's kind of your beat.
Yes.
So you gotta hit me with your best shot.
Sometimes I do a little bit of historical and I try to pry into your childhood. Sometimes I ask like, what was I
You're psychoanalyzing me.
Favorite
right?
Halloween movie or some shit in the chat a few weeks ago. That was crazy. No, I was gonna ask your opinion on maybe you've talked about this. I'm not sure. Like the subculture of James Dean in the 50s, kind of greaser, but I guess James Dean wasn't really a greaser, but kind of the teenage subculture that I guess was promoted and kind of blossomed in the 50s. And can you just give your opinions on that and just that whole world?
Well, let me say, first of all, the first time I ever went to Los Angeles, I went to Griffith Observatory. And me and a friend who hosted me out there, we went to Griffith Observatory. Have you seen Rebel Without a Cause?
Yes.
That is a very good movie. It's a great movie. I first saw it when I was a teenager. I'm like, this is a very, very cool film. It's poetic on a number of levels. what I think is interesting about that film is that it was specifically highlighting that in very wealthy areas of Southern California at that time, there was a lot of new wealth, but there was also a rise in juvenile crime. And it's like, why is this happening? Juvenile crime was associated with poverty historically, right? You know, kids that don't have a job, or they're from a poor family, they go out and steal things, or they're in a gang or something. But why are these kids? And you watch the movie, right? His parents are like, "We bought you a car." You know, I mean,
Right.
it's like he's living in this like 1950s luxury life, but yet he's getting into knife fights and stealing cars and what's going on there. But I would argue that was really, it was an expression of alienation. You know, and it was kind of Cold War America, right? You have the parents coming out of the Great Depression, and it's that whole thing of like the parents lived during the Great Depression, and then they lived through World War II, right? And so the parents had gone through World War II, which was a horrendous event where lots of people died. They've been through the Great Depression and struggling to eat and struggling to pay their bills, and people dying of malnutrition and the political turmoil of the Roosevelt years and all of that. And then all of a sudden you have the highest living standard in the world and everything's happy. And it's like, so now just be safe and comfortable. It's like, no. You look at so much 1950s culture, it's like, this can't be real, right? It's, you know, a traumatized person, you know, who suddenly is in a safe environment, looking over their shoulder going, you know, that's a whole lot of 1950s culture. 1947, you have the UFO scare, right? You know, where people all over the country are hallucinating and seeing UFOs. And then movie after movie, that's the 1950s, you get the cliche of like the giant monster attacking the city. You know what I'm saying? Or the alien invasion and all of that. And that the American subconscious was very, very horrified. And that was a big part of, you know, when they talk about the labor aristocracy and that white middle class, the white picket fence, the kind of held U.S. Cold War America together. Underlying that was an extreme amount of fear and terror. You know, they were not well, right? You know, and then, you know, the right historically kind of knew how to, you know, utilize the fears that those folks had. You know, I'll just use an example. You know, certain members of my family were living in the suburbs in the South during the 60s. And they told me they literally believed that "We Shall Overcome," the song of the Civil Rights Movement, meant kill all white people. And this was, everyone knew that. That was just a fact, right? And obviously that's not what Dr. Martin Luther King was saying. But, you know, everybody knew that. That was a fact. Dr. Martin Luther King says "We shall overcome," and that means kill all the white people. You know, and that there was like this, like, everyone's coming to get us. We're under attack. We may be comfortable. We may have a house. We may have a car, but we're not really safe. And that's what I view. That's the context of the James Dean thing. The other thing that's weird is that psychoanalysis, Freudianism, which I'm fascinated by, was huge in Hollywood in those years. And that movie in particular has a number of like weird Freudian tropes that wouldn't fly in Hollywood.
There's like a gay character in it, right? Pluto. What was his name? I think it's Pluto. And
Plato.
he's kind of like Plato. Yeah, he's kind of having like a gay crush on James Dean.
Well, it gets even weirder. So Sal Mineo was the actor. Sal Mineo was gay, and they didn't write the script for Sal Mineo's character to be gay, but Sal Mineo himself was gay, and James Dean was bisexual, and they were having an affair, and so it showed up in the movie. And that's one of the like weirdest stories in Hollywood, is that everyone saw it and they're like, "Oh, this is about homosexuality," and it's like, everyone's like, it is, but it kind of is if you look at the way he looks at James Dean throughout the movie and all of that. Sal Mineo is the very famous actor. He was the Plato kid who's like the juvenile delinquent who ends up, you know, becoming like, you know, having the gun and all of that, right? You know, he's the kid who's a little bit younger. But then like the Natalie Wood character, right? She's got sexual feelings for her father that comes across in the film. Right. And then like James Dean hates his father because his mother is always like bossing the father around.
Yeah.
And so
his father's weak. He perceives him as weak. Yeah.
Right. It's all a very like super Freudian film. And, there's a movie from World War II called Curse of the Cat The Cat People. Have you ever heard of this movie?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it came out during World War II, and it's about a woman who every time she gets sexually turned on, she turns into a cat. And it's not clear if you watch the movie if she actually turns into a cat or if she's just mentally ill, right? And it's totally like a Freudian thing. And it's like the psychoanalysis stuff was so big in Hollywood during these years that they were like, these tropes were showing up in movies in kind of weird ways. You know, they were all kind of on the psychoanalytic couch, and you know, and we know that that was, you know, the American deep state was obsessed with that.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
that's how like
Yeah.
acid was introduced to America. It was through these like fucked up 50s stars who like the American government and I guess institutions that were affiliated with the government were giving out acid trials to like these like kind of standard movie stars, and they were having like these weird acid therapy sessions throughout the 50s, and it's just such a weird, I guess that kind of shines through with what you were saying, where it's like it's all intertwined in this kind of Freudian kind of point of view.
Right. I mean, there was a movie that came out a couple years ago that was about the making of the movie Psycho. It was a movie about Alfred Hitchcock making the movie Psycho, and I thought that was fascinating because it showed like what was the source of all of that, and you know, and like what was the reaction to it. And then I had not seen the movie Psycho before. Have you seen Psycho?
Yes.
Yeah. And I watched Psycho and I'm like, this is interesting. It's like halfway between a 1950s detective movie and a modern slasher film. You know what I'm saying? It's like halfway through. And then the whole plot of the film, I mean, it's the thing is the guy is transgender, right? Like he thinks he's his mother or something. Like his mother takes over, and so he puts on her dress and kills people or something. And the whole thing is like, you know, but like apparently Alfred Hitchcock, a lot of the stars he worked with would go see like weird Freudian shrinks who would like have them act out weird fantasies and shit like that. And that,
oh shit, that made me think of something. You ever hear about? I think I was trying to get you talking about this the other day, or a few months ago. It was what is that thing? Like scream therapy, primal therapy. You ever hear primal therapy? That is weird shit. You would love reading about that. Read about primal therapy. It was like this thing in the 60s and the 70s. The reason it's well known today is because John Lennon of the Beatles was really into it. And it's like where you just like go like as a baby, you like cradle the ground and you scream, mama, like just scream, like you scream for your parents. You like try to go back to your primal self. And it's very, very, very weird. But it was like huge in like the milieu of this late 60s new left. And there was like a very popular book about it in like 68. And everybody was reading it. And Lennon kind of got trapped inside of that whole movement. But it's very similar to what you were saying. Well, I would research it.
These kind of things are like an obsession of the liberal CIA. And I noticed like right after Trump left office, all of a sudden there were all these TV programs about how if you take acid, that will like help you get over all your trauma and stuff. And if you look at it, like, I mean, it's like, yeah, there are some people that they're able to take hallucinogens and have therapy and hallucinogens that helps them see things from a different angle or something, but it's very vague. It's not like, but the way they were pushing it with the advertisements and all, it's like, take this drug and this will cure you of everything. And the other thing is EDMR, which is a popular therapy practice. I don't really know what it's like. They flash lights in your face and all of that. That suddenly was being pushed like crazy. Like I saw ads in the New York subways. I mean, there were all these articles in like mainstream magazines. EDMR is amazing. And if you look at the history of EDMR, there's a lot of people that are like, this wasn't so good. And, you know, I mean, and it was very, very weird. That stuff, you know, and you have to ask questions. What you're describing with this primal scream or whatever, that they talk about, that's catharsis, right? And and catharsis can be the basis of an addiction, right? It becomes addictive. You just have to let your feelings out. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the person gets kind of an endorphin rush from the catharsis. So, you know, I mean, that's very interesting. I think we should be, I mean, to some degree or other, some of this is just, you know, mental health, like anything else, like food health, like anything else, things go out of style. But then there's part of me that's always wondering, like, how much mind control and manipulation is going on, because the woke culture is all about trauma. It's all about making people kind of relive their victimization over and over in their mind so they can't hear the world around them, right? And I've talked about that with Kamala Harris. I mean, that's clearly what's going on with Kamala. She's trapped in her past, basically.
I forgot about Kamala Harris. That's how relevant she is. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Right.
God.
But, but it's just like there's a layer of, you know, how much of this is just, you know, the changes in the field, or how much of this is conscious mind control and manipulation that's going on, right? And we really don't know. we really don't know. I will say, and this is interesting because I don't know if you saw on Twitter. So I, the just before this started, right? I did the thumbnail for this, and I was wearing I used like an anime graphic of myself, right? Where I'm wearing a white coat, and someone said, "You look like a Scientologist." And so I replied and I said, "Does this, is that like a compliment?" And they said, "This image also looks like it's made by AI. Are you an AI Scientologist?" And so I thought, is that kind of like, Richard Pryor talks about, there's Muslims and then there's double Muslims. Well, there's Scientologists and there's AI Scientologists. But to some degree or other, the reason that Scientology and psychiatry and standard mental health are at odds with each other is their competition, right? They're marketing the same thing, basically, right? Scientology presents itself as a mental health treatment that is just not recognized by the field. And
what's his name? Who started Scientology? L. Ron Hubbard. He was attached to that milieu as well. The fucking acid milieu, and he was into like Satanism, weirdly, like sex UFO shit, like weird, just like what the hell.
And he was also a U.S. Naval Intelligence officer, right? I mean, and he developed Scientology by working with vets who had PTSD, and he learned like there was a kind of hypnosis he could do that he felt was helping them get over their trauma or whatever. And
he must have gotten some money from the government. I would imagine he got something.
Oh, totally. I mean, if he was a naval intelligence officer, he was working with vets and all of that. And that's where you ask questions. It's like, clearly Scientology, it started out like it was intelligence connected, but then it was being like widely ridiculed and condemned. And it's like, and then, especially towards the end of his life, they clearly had a relationship with the American government that was hostile. Like the American government was out to get them. But then for years, they had a lot of power in Hollywood and nobody touched them. There'd be a negative story here or there, but nobody touched them. But then I noticed, about 10 years ago, the Leah Remini stuff started up, and they have too much power in Hollywood. And some people have said, well, it's because they don't believe in medications. There's so much money made from psych meds now that because they don't believe in it and they're in Hollywood, that's dangerous. But I noticed after Trump got elected the first time, right, he was really pandering to them very hard. There was a woman on Fox News, Greta Van Susteren, and she's a Scientologist, and she left Fox News, right? And she ended up going to be on Voice of America, like the American government thing. Trump just gave her a show on Voice of America. And then Tom Cruise made the movie American Made, which was amazing. It was a very good film about the CIA cocaine connection and about like an airline pilot who gets recruited to run cocaine for the Contras in Nicaragua. And it shows how Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton was involved in covering all of that up. So that made me wonder. I wondered, is Scientology being pushed on in a direction like the state is so out to get them that pushed them into the Trump camp because Trump is also at odds with the state? And I wondered, and I heard also that Scientology and Epoch Times have a close relationship. Which
that is weird.
Yeah, Epoch Times I'm not a big fan of. So I don't know. Scientology does have deep state connections. It does have intelligence agencies, but right now it's clearly on the defensive. That's very clear. They have faced kind of an all-out onslaught. But yeah, go ahead.
I have one question. I have one more question for you. I'm guessing you've definitely heard of it. I don't know why I'm asking you. You've heard of South Park?
Of course. Yeah. Matt Stone, Trey Parker.
Can you give like a little bit of like how do you think it kind of shaped 2000s conservatism? Because I feel like it kind of shaped a lot of how people would talk about like politics, American politics back in the day. Like the whole thought of like how did they describe the 2004 election? Like a shitburger and another thing. It was like a very libertarian view, like, well, I'm a libertarian, so I'm not Republican or Democrat, where it's like kind of a disjointed view on politics. Just give a rundown on how that, like, I guess, impacted your thinking, or how you think it impacted the cultural image of that whole scene.
They were conservatives, right? In that they had episodes attacking hate crimes laws. They were like kind of libertarian conservatives, but they were at odds with the prevailing trend among conservatives at the time, which was the religious right. The religious right could not stand them, right? Because they were using foul language, because they were, all those things. And that in a way, they would probably hate this. And I think they hate Richard Dawkins. They really enabled the new atheist movement during Obama. They set the stage for that. That never would have happened without them. Right. And and that they, even though they were conservative, or I guess libertarian, they took aim at the same time. They were mocking the left. They really hated like the activist left, the Hollywood left. It was like mocking them for being self-righteous in this kind of like frat boy kind of way. But they hated the Mormon church. They hated religion. They were very obscene and crass, and they were kind of also throwing a lot of bombs at the neocon establishment. You know what I'm saying? And I remember when the show first started, it was, oh my goodness, they were blaming school shootings on it. And it was widely hated by conservatives in America. It was considered to be, and they themselves leaned into that like crazy. They just laughed about it. And the other thing is, I've noticed that the show, I haven't watched it in years. I watched it for a while. I watched it like when I was in college. I watched it pretty regularly, but I haven't seen it in years. I've noticed that I noticed there were times where they really dropped the ball. They would talk, like they did a show attacking WikiLeaks at one point, that was really
I've
awesome.
seen that.
Yeah. And that stuff like that. So, I don't know. I mean, they're interesting. And I know that musical they did, the Book of Mormon, that was like, it won all these awards. I never saw that, but I've heard mixed things about it and all of that. So, and are they still a force to be reckoned with? Are they still kind of setting political discourse, would you say?
I wouldn't say, I feel like the last time they've been relevant in the whole political scene is probably like 2015, 2016. I feel like they really made an impact on how the right kind of embraced anti-PC culture. I mean, the right was always going to embrace that, but I feel like they kind of gave it like I guess a better image to embrace, where they were really against the whole PC thing. They were really against they called it, I think, PC police. There was a whole season about like PC principle, I think it was, where it was like a total attack on that early Hillary Clinton inspired PC culture that started. And I feel like it really impacted the way people saw culture.
Right. Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah. And the kind of the rise of Donald Trump, the way he is anti-PC, we admire him for being, politically incorrect, very much comes from that. Well, Carter, have you signed up your CPI membership? Have you renewed?
No, I should. Well,
please
do the membership due or whatever.
Yes. Please go to cpiusa.org and sign up your membership. And it's always good to have you on. You ask good questions. You know how to get me talking. So it's been a pleasure. So thank you, Carter. Thank you. And catch you next time. All right. That was Carter. Always good. Now we're going to bring on a good friend of ours. Gavin, how you doing?
Hey. Good to see you, Caleb.
Good to see you. That is a good shirt. You said you weren't ready to come on yet because you were getting a good shirt. That is a nice green there, right? Like a light green kind of. I like it.
Yeah, it's a little dark in here, so it's a blue. So, but yeah, I was actually in kind of a shirt that I could go to sleep in. I was thinking of calling it an early night because I had worked hard today, but no, I'm just I'm back. I always see this the library behind you, and a friend of mine actually asked out of curiosity, would you ever be willing to do like a library tour where you maybe like show some of the books behind you and say what you recommend and don't and why?
Maybe, it's funny. You're not the first person who has brought that up. That has been raised a number of times. So maybe I should just do that. I feel like it's a little weird. It's like, I don't want to be like bragging, like, look at all the books but at the same time, I mean, people continue to ask about it. I think it makes a good background. I will say that one of the funniest comments when my YouTube channel first started, I got a comment, and when you get a YouTube comment, you don't know if they're being sarcastic or not, because what they're saying is so like weird. And they said, and I will never forget, he's smart because he is sitting in front of books.
And you never know if it's serious or not.
Right. Is the person just being like a dick, or do they actually think I'm smart? Or like one of my early interviews I did, I was like defending communism, and someone wrote below it, "Oh, he's a communist, comma, I bet he's a big fan of the Jews." And I wondered, now, is this person a Nazi or a Zionist? Right? Because the Zionist would think that they're being sarcastic. I bet he's a big fan of the Jews. Like, I hate Jews because I'm a communist. Right. But then the Nazi would say he's a big fan of the Jews because communism is a Jewish conspiracy. And I remember I looked at that comment and I'm like, which one is that? Which one is it? Right. Am I an anti-Semite or an agent of the Jews? Right. Like, every so often you get a YouTube comment and you're like, wait, where is he coming from on this? Right. So yeah, he's smart because he's sitting in front of books. Is someone just literally saying that? or or are they just making fun of me for sitting in front of books, or or he's a communist, bet he's a big fan of the Jews. Are they saying I hate Jews? Are they saying I literally must be a big fan of the Jews because communism is a Jewish conspiracy? I don't know, right? YouTube comments are like that. People say you shouldn't.
Text medium is just a horrible means of communication.
I
really believe that the only reason you should text is to get people out to see them in real life, basically.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people hide behind texts. You know what I mean? When they don't want to talk to somebody. And especially one thing I really, really hate is manifesto texts. You know what I'm saying? I try to make my text short. I do 2 or 3 if you know how I text. I really don't like when someone sends me. It's like I can't read all that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm gonna miss something. You know what I'm saying? So and just call me, right? Just talk to me. I don't know. That's been my feeling, but there you go.
I enjoy the actual talking on the phone medium a bit better because I find that if I'm texting, I kind of obsess over how to say it right. Whereas if I'm on the phone and it's running, the clock is ticking, then I'll just say it, and I don't have that problem of perfectionism as much.
Yeah, and I feel like every time I get a manifesto text, I miss something. I can go over it, but there's something I'm missing. But Gavin, you have a lot of unique, like niche interests that overlap with mine. So what can you update me on in our mutual interest world? You know what I mean?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe you could start, because I've been trying to tune out the news to kind of, keep my sanity lately, but maybe you could start.
Oh, I don't know. You asked me about, at one point you asked me about, could I compare Reverend Jack Hyles to Jerry Healy, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but they're both large men, outspoken, charismatic, been canceled.
Right.
I guess, Jack Hyles wasn't really ever anti-imperialist, at least not that I'm aware.
Right.
But they're kind of the hated fringe of their movement. One of them has the movement of socialism, and one of them the movement of evangelical Christianity. So you could say that.
I mean, I have studied Healy because I was fascinated by how he was pro-Gaddafi and how he said that Iraq and Syria were socialist countries and Libya was a socialist country, which now I've had some people dispute that he actually said that, right? And I can't, he was a friend of Gaddafi. He was Gaddafi's personal friend, and Gaddafi funded him, and people allege that he did intelligence work for Iraq and Syria, like he spied on communists in exile for the Iraqi and Syrian government or something. But I can't find him ever saying they were socialist, and I've had people dispute that with me. But the main thing is that he was pro-Palestine and pro-Ba'ath socialism when nobody else was, right? And
way before it was cool to be pro-Palestine.
Yeah, like nobody was pro-Palestine back then, and he was like all out front pro-Palestine. And that it struck me as that, like, Trotskyism, most Trotskyist groups are pro-imperialist, but Healy was somebody who was a Trotskyist who had a falling out with the other Trots, and so he kind of ended up being anti-imperialist. You know what I'm saying? Did you just give the middle finger to somebody? Or what?
No. I was saying he was giving the middle finger. That part of it is giving the middle finger to the other Trotskyists.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, okay. I thought maybe there was somebody in the chat offending you or something. But anyway, yeah. So like he ended up being anti-imperialist, and that like Marxism, Sam Marcy is obviously the ultimate of that because he was very anti-imperialist. Healy was not consistently anti-imperialist, but he was good on Palestine, good on Libya and Iraq and Syria. But then there was also there's the group that everyone jokes about, the space aliens group. I can't remember their name.
Posadists. I forget what their party's called.
Yeah, the Posadists. But they apparently were also like they were pro Cuba and all of that. And then there was Michel Pablo, right? Michel Pablo was leader of Greek Trotskyism, and and he was like he ended up merging his group into the main socialist group in Greece, the Social Democratic Party, but he always represented the anti-imperialist faction, and he was like a paid employee of the Algerian government at one point and the Syrian government.
Tell me about that guy, because I don't know about Marcel Pablos.
Yeah, Michel Pablo. He was Michel Pablo. He was the Trot who said that the Soviet Union was regenerating because of the Cold War, right? That because Stalin, his instinct was to collaborate with the imperialists or whatever, but because of the fact that that the U.S. imperialists were going all in against the Soviet Union. Stalin was like being forced to become an anti-imperialist, was being forced to become, revolutionary. And then and Marcy was a Pabloist at first, but then when Stalin died, the Khrushchev revelations happened, right? 56. Michel Pablo said that was proof that the Soviet Union was being regenerated. Sam Marcy said the Khrushchev revelations were a retreat, a favor to the imperialists. They didn't agree about that. But Michel Pablo, his big thing was deep entryism, right? So he said that basically the Fourth International should liquidate, and they should form like secret factions inside the communist and social democratic parties of Europe. And so that's like where the Trots would join the communist parties, but then have a secret faction that was like maneuvering inside the communist parties or something. And that they argued that World War III was coming, and that World War III would take on the character of an international civil war, an international class struggle, and that Stalinism would be forced to be revolutionary, and Trotskyism would assume leadership of the anti-imperialist camp. That's Pabloism, right? And
it kind of reminds you of Posadism, with the idea that the working class could win a nuclear war or something like that.
Yeah, well, Posadism was it came out of Pabloism, so it kind of their roots make sense. They were Pabloists at first, but then they took it to a whole nother level. And from what I understand, Pablo even thought that he had a granddaughter, and he thought she was part alien or something, and and that dolphins had human intelligence, or it went really nuts toward the end. But the other thing about Posada, I'm not Pablo, but Posada. The other thing is Posada apparently, from what I understand, Posada, he was a famous soccer player before he became a communist, right? Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was a famous soccer player, and that he was pro Perón. Juan Perón was this emerging figure, and that he said that the correct position was to support Peronism, and that's kind of what made him, so that's kind of interesting. Trotskyism is very strange, but it's just I feel like Trotskyism, because there's so many different versions of it, it can become a vehicle for different things, and I think that's clear, and that there were Trotskyite groups that were being supported by the Soviet Union. There's no question about that. Towards the end of the Cold War, the mainstream of Trotskyism was obviously on the side of the imperialists, but there were a number of renegade Trotskyist groups that were on the right side for strange reasons, So I think the main thing is that Trotskyism forms little sects. It doesn't form mass movements. It forms little sects, and little sects are very useful as counter gangs to intelligence agencies and stuff like that. I think that's
an argument against Trotskyism is that it seems like it's particularly susceptible to pro-imperialist psyops.
Yes.
But now I kind of have to walk that back, because I've always been very anti-Trotskyist, but I can't always exactly say that now, because lots of groups calling themselves communist and Marxist-Leninists and all these things are just as useful to the imperialists as anybody else. So it's kind of like people have said on the stream before about the left-right thing. It's definitely a confusing time to be alive. Because I think you and I, Caleb, both can remember a time in our lives when we kind of thought that Stalin-style ML communism was the way, the truth, and the life. And now it's just not. It's not that simple. And we also see the problems. And
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. At this point, we're moving away from using the communist label, because it doesn't. At this point, to people that become communists, it means something that we're not. And to people that oppose communism, who are very good and anti-imperialist, it means something that it's not. And it's we're innovationists now, because, it's just such a mess. Right. And that, it's it's you almost can view the world as if you want to frame it in theological terms, it's God and Satan are battling for control of this world. And that God will have an idea, and then Satan will be like, oh, well, I'm going to do my version of it. Right. And then Satan will have an idea, and God will be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do my version of it. You know what I mean? And that then there's a copy of the copy. Right. And then there's a response to the response. And it's almost like everything that happens. And this is how there's a weird duality in politics, where it's everything that happens, there's a version of it on the other side. I've noticed.
Yeah, it's a hall of mirrors. There has to be a decoy of everything.
Right. And that really, I'm at the point where, are people pro-growth? Are they anti-growth? That is big. Are they critical of the censorship and Do they want the human race to expand? Do they want the life expectancy to go up? They want the population to expand, or do they want the population to go down? Are they just demonizing the countries that are under attack by imperialism, or are they pushing back against the war rhetoric? Like, those are certain things to look for, and that how people explain it ideologically almost doesn't, it matters. It's like something I'll talk to them over coffee with, but it's not going to help me get anything done. If someone says, "Oh, Caleb, I agree with you about Trotsky," or "I agree with you about Stalin," it's like, okay, well, when Donald Trump gets elected and he's under attack by the bulk of his own class, and he appoints Tulsi Gabbard, who is more friendly to Russia and has met with Bashar Assad, to be the director of intelligence, to like try to stick it to the CIA. Are you going to help me be in the streets to kind of mobilize some intervention there or not? Right. And what you think about Stalin really, it doesn't really answer that question.
I love what John McCarthy said, one of our CPI members, for anybody new watching, that, I don't know if I should pull it up because I don't want to misquote it, but I think he said, saying that both wings in this division in the ruling class are equally bad is just as foolish as saying trust the plan, and it's like I think that we need to try to influence Trump's cabinet and not just give up on go to this ultra leftist thing of like both sides are capitalist Zionists. That's like a kindergarten level analysis of what's going on.
Right. It is. And it's like, we have the opportunity, and it's like, it's about the balance of forces, right? If a lot of the people supporting Tulsi Gabbard were anti-Israel, there's a good chance that Tulsi Gabbard would be much more open to that perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As I've said, the fact that Tulsi Gabbard was persuaded on Korea and on Syria, it's like, why not Palestine? It might be harder, but I don't think it's impossible. What choice do we have but to try to convince people that we don't need a nuclear war and so forth?
Right. And the point is, we're struggling. We see divisions in the ruling class. We see divisions. How can we make ourselves relevant and push our agenda of anti-imperialism and ultimately put forward what we view as the solution? And that's the question, right? And if the question is just to kind of like feel right on the internet, which is so much of what the culture is, right? It's just, how can I prove that I am right on the internet? It's just like, what do you get from that? It's like, it's like, I've never been to a funeral where they're like, Bob died, but folks, there was that time that Bob was right on the internet, and we'll never forget that. Everyone remembers that day Bob was right on the internet, and that's what he'll always go down in history for, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like,
and that's another reason of moving away from the communist label is because for so many people, being a communist is about having the moral high ground in internet debates. That's not an exaggeration. That's what being a communist is in America. And to certain, Garland Nixon sometimes says that he's not too ideological, and I can respect that because people get really caught up in ideology. You want to be aware of ideology, enough so that you're not, thinking that you don't have one or something like that, but I like what he's saying about not getting super deep into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Gavin, my best wishes to you. You're doing great work. I know we got some exciting things coming up. You're out in Chicago, and you have already re-signed up for CPI, I believe.
I
right?
just did, inspired by this stream and the people on it.
Very good. Well, be in touch. Always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Good luck, Caleb. Solidarity.
Yep. All righty. So now we've got a few more people to bring on. So, Matt. Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Hey, Caleb.
Hey, what's happening?
This is Matt from Titusville. I'm not a CPI member, but I heard about you through Jimmy Dore and your book on that was banned on Amazon that made its way back.
Where's Titusville?
Yes. The rockets the space shuttle used to launch about 10, 15 miles from my house. Now I have SpaceX and Blue Origin, and they rattle the hell out of my windows on my house. So
is that in Texas, or where is that?
No, this is in Florida. I'm like
Florida.
Canaveral, Central, like Orlando, right in the middle of the not the Panhandle, but like the actual part of Florida that goes down into the Atlantic, dividing the Atlantic from the Gulf. Okay. And I'm like smack dab in the middle of that, closer to the eastern coast.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm not a member. I'm more, I guess you could say, I'm in a political wilderness because I'm not really sure because there's portions of libertarianism I like. There's portions of Marxism that I enjoy. I also I like my money as any capitalist would, but at the same time, I do believe that there's social causes that need to be taken care of that we don't do, such as I do think we should have nationalized or universal health care. May not necessarily have to be universal health care across the entire nation. Perhaps universal health care in regards to each state has their own universal health care, but perhaps to what the extent what they cover could apply to each state. Because, for example, my state, Florida, I don't have statistics, but there's a lot of old people here. A lot of old folks come out here and retire, and we would have a lot more higher costs because generally old folks are going to get more. They're going to have more medical needs, and we may not have as many young people to continue to pay into the system. So that, how you say, when you were speaking with another guest, you were talking about how NHS in the UK has their own system. I had read that Scotland has also their own version of NHS, but theirs is ran a bit more efficiently than the way the UK is. I can't remember specifics why, but basically they handle it, I guess, on a town level, or there's like a, how do you say, the locals are in control more of their healthcare than a bunch of representatives.
Well, it's interesting because I was a very enthusiastic supporter of Scottish independence back when the referendum happened in 2014. And one of the things that they would bring up is that Scotland is economically much more left-wing or social democratic than the rest of the UK. And that they still have free college in Scotland.
It's not like they ever had an empire,
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and that they also,
I can see where the conservatism comes from.
Yeah, and that they haven't had the NHS cuts, etc. That they've had, and I was very excited about Scottish independence, but then, especially around the time of the pandemic, the Scottish National Party just deteriorated into the most woke, pro-European Union, cancel culture party. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed that I was supporting them because they just have really just deteriorated into the most anti-Russian, neoliberal, woke, cancel culture, LGBT, whatever. I will say that I really admire Tommy Sheridan. Tommy Sheridan is this Scottish socialist who gives amazing speeches and was an advocate of independence. But yeah, I know that what you're describing, it may just be that they have maintained the welfare state to some degree or other. And that was, I guess, when Scottish independence really flared up in 2014, that's what they made it about. They made it an anti-austerity thing. It was like, we want to be independent from the United Kingdom so we can not have cuts in social spending, right? And I remember that. And that very rapidly changed into something else. George Galloway always opposed Scottish independence, and the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninists, they always opposed Scottish independence. I was excited about it because I'm excited about anything that seems to be at odds with the imperialists. And when Barack Obama went to Scotland and was urging them not to do it, and when they put their military operations in the Middle East on hold, in order to do it, I was like, okay, if Scotland breaks away, this will fuck up imperialism. So I'm for it. And I was hearing Tommy Sheridan's speeches. And so I was very excited about it, but it seemed to have kind of deteriorated into something else. The main issue in the Scottish independence question was oil and gas, which was that Scotland has a huge amount of natural gas and a huge amount of oil.
I didn't know about their natural resources.
Yeah, and it was basically that right now all of those resources are like privately run by London bankers. But if they declared independence, that would then change the rules. They could be nationalized, and that was the main issue. And so the whole thing was very, very weird. The Scottish independence referendum. It in 2014, it seemed like an anti-austerity movement, but it stopped being that pretty quickly, unfortunately. So it was interesting, and again, I feel like, was I wrong to support it? No, I wasn't wrong to support it. I just think it had a different character at the time. And the other thing is, I do think that Scotland is a nation. It's not an oppressed nation. It's
completely different culture. There's
Yeah,
not too
but
many
they,
kilts walk. You don't see too many kilts around in England now, do you?
yeah, no, I
That's
mean
why I
they,
say they should be their own country.
yeah, and I went there when I was a kid, and I mean, it's, you know, they have a different dialect of English. They have their own languages historically that have been suppressed. You know, they have their own religious groups, and that they're a nation. They're part of the imperialist homeland, though. I mean, and that there were Scottish kings who wore the crown in London, and that you know there were Scottish, you know, big bankers who colonized places. I mean, they're not like
They
it's
have
not like Puerto Rico.
over 1,000 years of history together. I'm
Yeah.
certain, you know, I'm certain that lines are going to get crossed. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, but they are definitely a nation, and that some of our allies were saying, well, Scotland has never been a nation, and I was just like, I'm not ready to accept that. You know, I would be willing to hear their side of the story, but I read what they were saying, and they said Scotland has never been a nation, and there's just one British nationality, and I'm not. No, Wales is a nation, England is a nation, Scotland is a nation. Ireland is also a nation, but it's an oppressed nation. Ireland is definitely an oppressed nation. It's a colonized nation. But, you know, there are different nations or nationalities among imperialist countries. You know, I mean, there's no question about it. So I think that Scotland was a nationality. The other thing that I find fascinating is the Jacobite uprising, which is a very interesting, right? You know, that was you know, in the time of the English Civil War, the Scottish people were largely Roman Catholic still, right? And Oliver Cromwell took power, you know, and England was very, very Protestant and all of that. And so there was an armed uprising against England, trying to put a Catholic king on the throne. And it was supported by the French. And in Scotland, all these Scottish folks from the Highlands and in the areas that were still largely feudal, where they were Roman Catholic, they took up arms against the government in London. And it was a very bloody war that went on for a long time. And then afterwards, they committed genocide. There was genocide of the Scottish Highlanders. I mean, it was a cultural genocide, exterminating their language, exterminating everything. And that, like, you know, when I was a kid, my parents used to take me to bluegrass music concerts, right? And you'd hear all these songs about Charlie, you know, over the river to feed my sheep, over the river. Well, that was Bonnie Prince Charlie, who was the leader of the uprising, right? He was the Catholic guy they wanted to put on the throne, right? You know, he was this guy who they claimed was the rightful king of England, who was Roman Catholic. And after the Jacobite uprising, it became a crime to speak his name, even, right? Because he was
just to say his name in public, eh?
To say his name. If you said Bonnie Prince Charlie, King Charlie, or whatever, you could be put in prison just for saying his name. I mean, it was like they went all out, and that it was, you know, it was like a genocide of the Scottish people. And it was largely to privatize the land. They still had like feudal commons where all these people lived, but it was like privatization of the land. And what I also find to be fascinating is that that Adam Smith, the founder of the big capitalist ideologue, he was living in London during that time. He was a Scotsman, but he was on England's side in the Jacobite uprising. And then he went to Glasgow, and he was like a self-hating Scotsman, basically. Like his writing was all about how like capitalism was modern and civilizing, and he was basically denigrating and tarnishing his own people because they were these backwards feudal people who had rejected the modern world and the free market. And that if you look at Adam Smith's writing in the context of the time he was living in, he's like on the defensive as a Scotsman. He's saying, I'm Scottish, but I'm not like my people. Don't worry. I'm just like you English people. I'm going to write books defending your new economic theories and everything like that. And if you view it in that ethnic context, it's fascinating. You know, he was like a kind of a Scottish comprador, as his nationality is being kind of crushed and genocided. So there you go. You know.
Well, you know, I'm glad they have their own version of NHS.
Indeed. But what else is on your mind, Matt? Anything else?
Well, I think I have quite a few things, I suppose, but I know I have a certain amount of time. I do think we need to formalize, because I understand that the Korean War, we're technically still at war, where there's no formal treaty signed. I don't see why any president hasn't done it, you know, but I think that, you know, it's better to make them the boogeyman. Like, for example, I don't think the Democrats will ever codify Roe v. Wade. Personally, I see both sides of the issue. I wouldn't want the government telling me what to do with my body if I was a woman. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of, well, what that kid could quite possibly be. But when the question came around on the ballot, I decided to leave that alone, because it's not really my place. You know, I was very tore up on it on both sides. but I think I feel that we should have just codified. If how you say we should have had a treaty with DPRK, but we chose not to do it. I think Trump will definitely formalize it because I think that's just an easy win for him when he gets back in. I do believe that all drugs, regardless of what, of the harm. Yes, some drugs are much more harmful than others. I loved Ron Paul in 2012. Political wilderness. I know.
Sure.
I think, but there should be limitations. 25 years of age and up within your own private residence, unless it's something that's like tobacco or even to the extent of pot.
No person who has a drug addiction issue has ever benefited from going to prison. You know what I mean? Like the idea that, oh, this person has a drug problem. I know, let's throw them in a facility with a bunch of other drug addicts and a bunch of criminals. And I mean, and we'll give them a criminal record for the rest of their life and make it hard for them to get a job and all of that. That's going to make.
If you don't mind me asking, with addiction, is addiction really, I mean, what is addiction precisely? Because, if someone chooses to do a drug, how often they choose to do it, at what point is it considered addiction?
That's interesting. I actually have been reading this book lately, The Myth of Psychology by Fred Newman, and he actually has a chapter on addiction, and he actually raises this very point. And he makes a lot of points. You know what the biggest way that people stop being drug addicts is? And this is the point that he makes in his essay. It's called Crisis Normalization, or what is it called? It's called The Myth of Addiction is the chapter of this book, The Myth of Psychology by Fred Newman.
Financial costs?
And and this is The Myth of Addiction. And I read that, and it's fascinating. It's like a lecture that he gave. The main reason when they ask people who were drug addicts, who've been in drug treatment, why did you quit?
I'm guessing financial.
No, they say, I just stopped. That's the main reason people stop being addicts, not treatment, not, this.
They stop because of lack of access?
That something, whatever was making them want to use drugs psychologically is no longer there.
But so they had a stage in life where they feel like they needed it.
Yeah, it's just either it's not giving them the thrill that they used to get from it, or they just stop. They're just ready to stop. And that's the main reason people stop being addicts. And that kind of blows up everything we know. That doesn't match any of the medical research and data and all this. It's like, and that, a lot of people become addicted and die from it. A lot of people and all of that. And then there's
right.
And then they just stop, and that raises a question. Obviously chemical addiction is a real thing. Right. Like an alcoholic, if they've been drinking every day and they stop, they have withdrawal symptoms, and the same with heroin and all of that. And then we talk about like non-chemical addiction. They say, well, it's mentally addictive, right? Well, that's habit forming, but that is very vague, right? Habit forming, it's like, wait a second. You know what I mean? Like that's
if a man is more productive, if a man is able to do his job, he doesn't, when he gets harmed, say he's working on a factory line or something, and he has to make a widget. If he's able to make more widgets per hour because he's on blow, I mean, wouldn't a capitalist say, go right ahead? Like, if the guy's working harder, assuming he's not, creating more issues for the company than he would be if he was sober, why wouldn't you want to give him some sort of? It's like, to me, I don't really understand why you would want to take steroids away from an athlete. If an athlete is able to shave 2 minutes off of his mile because he's on meth or something like that, why not let him do it? I mean, other people can choose to take it or not. Maybe you have, instead of how you say, like, boys and girls, and then the whole amalgamation of, now we should be able to combine them into both. Don't get me started on that. I can't believe that we had to keep men out of women's sports and women out of men's sports. Jesus Christ.
Listen, Matt, so I'm headed down to Florida. I'll be in Tampa.
For the Uhuru movement, I take it?
Yeah, I'll be there. So,
I wanted to go, but it's I work for a living, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Well, consider coming to the rally that's happening the weekend before or whatever,
What would the date of that be, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I think the court date is Monday, which I think is the 16th, right? And so then there's a rally on Sunday the day before. So, if you can come by
16th.
Tampa. Right?
December, correct?
December, yeah. So I think the rally is the day before. They're having a rally around their case on the 15th. So that'll be on the weekend. So if you stop by the
Sunday,
rally,
I might be able to make that.
Yeah, we can shake hands. So that'll be good. So All right. Good to talk to you, Matt, and best wishes out in Florida.
Oh, certainly. It was a pleasure talking to you, Caleb, and I look forward to tuning into the rest of your
Absolutely
podcasts. I truly enjoy them, and if can I ask you one more question though, real fast?
Sure. Make it fast. Yeah. Yeah. What's up?
Well, what? Okay, if we wanted to stop wokeism a long time ago, why didn't in one of your guests was talking about being in Hawaii? Why didn't anyone turn around and tell a liberal who was getting on the case about, if you're white, male, you must have a privilege, it makes you evil, and so on and so forth. Why didn't anybody in power ask some liberal to say, okay, well, why don't we give Hawaii back to the kingdom? I mean, Hawaii, Native Hawaiians don't look, they're not too white. Let's be honest here. And we came in there and, mowed them down left, right, and center, took over their kingdom, I'm sorry, and made it a territory and then eventually a state. Why don't we turn around and say, go back to a kingdom? It's the least we can do. In my opinion, I don't think reparations work, especially when we're money printing left, right, and center and making the value of the dollar worth less and less every day.
One thing I've noticed about wokeism is that wokeism very much loves to embrace things that are never going to happen, right?
Correct.
When you start entering the territory of something that could actually happen, all of a sudden wokeism alarm bells go off, right? And that, there was this map going around of how, it was like the land back map, and it was like the United States divided up among all the Native American tribes, and there were elected officials that tweeted it in Ireland and prominent Democrats. That's never going to happen, right?
No.
It's totally safe. It's just totally safe, right? Whereas Bernie Sanders,
people who have all the money aren't going to give up their land.
Yeah, and it's just never going to happen. But it's like, oh yes, we should divide the United States up among the Native Americans. That sounds so woke and so, but it's never going to happen. But when you start talking about Medicare for all and what happened with Jimmy Dore is
Bernie's a huge cuck. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
in the whole Medicare for all when Jimmy Dore tried to get what was it?
Right
at the
Jimmy
height
Dore,
of COVID. Hey, let's get a vote for Medicare for all. And Nancy Pelosi blocked that shit thanks to people like AOC, Squad, those insufferable.
And they went after Jimmy Dore like crazy. I logged in and I was like, and it was like, why? Because he was pointing toward a road to which something could actually happen, and that's what made him dangerous.
That
right?
would have been the best time more than ever.
Angela Davis,
oh my God, hide under your bed sheets because COVID. Look, I drive. I deliver boxes for a living. I won't tell you the corporation I work for, but my corporation's favorite color is purple. Okay, you can figure that out.
Right.
I deliver boxes for a living, and I was told so many times. And I deliver to a very prominent area, the most high, the richest part of my county in Melbourne Beach, and all the time these were all very well-to-do people living on the beach. COVID mask, double, triple mask, whatever CNN was saying this week. And you know how many times I heard these people tell me, you're not a hero. You're a hero even though you don't wear a cape. And I'm like, really? I'm a hero? Well, why don't you treat me like my goddamn hero instead of paying me as much as a school teacher, except I don't get summers off and children to do half my work. All I'm saying is it's a little frustrating, how I'm told how I'm a hero, but that doesn't pay my bills,
Right.
When and that's why I'm all for unionization. When I see Teamsters are bringing home $175,000 a year for UPS drivers, but I'm unnamed corporation over here.
Right.
you can probably guess who it is.
Sure.
6 years. This December will be 6 years I've been driving for him. It's horrible, and because it's such a low skill job, it doesn't matter. The route owners will just drop you like it's nothing and bring somebody else in because all you got to do is pee clean in a cup and don't run over a kid in a school zone, and whoop-de-doo, you got yourself a job as long as you can show up every day. I'm on the higher list for the International Union of Elevator Constructors, Local 139 over in Orlando. There are just a few people away from calling me, so I'll be can't wait to be involved in that because I'll be around people who are around a common cause, people like-minded, a group of individuals of us all working along class lines, which is important.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, and good luck with that.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing the elevator thing very soon.
And I look forward to seeing you on the 15th.
Absolutely. See you in Florida. Very good. Talk to you soon. Yep. All right. Well, now we are going to bring on a longtime friend of the show. If I can get my StreamYard to go down here, Terry. It just wouldn't be a good stream without here. Terry, your ladyship. Wow. There you go. How you doing?
Yeah, how's it going?
All good. How about yourself?
I'm good. Been listening in, trolling the chat a little bit.
Very good. Well, listen, there's going to be a big drop from CPI very soon, and I would like to talk to you about that big drop when it happens. So let's be in touch about that. Can't say too much about it, but you will like it, I think. You will be.
Big drop.
It is up your alley. Let me just say that.
Okay.
So, how are things on the Pacific Northwest?
It's been storming today. Rain and hail and darkness and cold. What else? We have a new mayor in town, new city council people. We're not raising taxes.
Okay, that's
I'm trying to
good.
think what else happened with the recent votes here in Oregon.
So, I took a little break. I'll tell you a local story in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. I took a little break because, during the election and lead up to the election, I was just so exhausted. And I was honestly quite worried about Kamala Harris winning for a lot of reasons. And so I just took a little break. And so something happened during my break that I would have talked about on a stream if I was streaming at the time. So I'll just share the story now. So I was in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. I was walking around and I saw some Jehovah's Witnesses, JWs. You know what I'm saying? And they had set up. And they had their, their books they were giving out, but they always have it in different languages. And so I saw the letters, and it was a language I did not recognize. So I went up to the Jehovah's Witness guy, and I said, "What language is that?" And he said, and there were two of them, and one of them was an older guy, and the other was younger. And the younger guy was clearly just off the boat. He was in his 20s. And he said, "Well, this is Georgian, because we're from Georgia." And I'm like, "Oh, you're from Georgia." And I had never seen the Georgian language before. It doesn't look like Russian. It doesn't have Cyrillic letters. It looks different. And so I was talking to the guy from Georgia, and I said, I heard that in Georgia these days, some people believe that Stalin was a Christian. And I swear, this I did not expect what I was about to hear. This 20-year-old Georgian guy who's just moved here, he says to me, "Of course they think he was a Christian because he did so many good things and helped so many people."
Right on.
I was just like, wow, I did not expect to meet a pro-Stalin Georgian Jehovah's Witness on the streets of New York City. And I said, do you think he was a Christian? He says, "No, he was not a Christian." And then he wanted to talk to me about being a Jehovah's Witness and how they're real Christians and everything. But I just thought that was very badass. And he apparently is from Gori, where Stalin was born, where Stalin is wildly popular. And he didn't think it was a shock at all that people would think Stalin was a Christian because Stalin was clearly just such a good guy. That was just so cool. I just was like, this is an amazing conversation. So there you go. That is my New York City. Only on the streets of New York City, only in Brooklyn, New York, do you meet pro-Stalin Jehovah's Witnesses from Georgia. So there you go.
Yeah, I haven't had any fun encounters like that here. It's a much quieter place, though, usually. Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, we do have Jehovah's Witnesses that's set up every weekend. So if I wanted to reach out to them, I could. But I've known people involved in them or who grew up in them, and it's not something I want to get involved in at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a religion. You have your own religion. You're an American Baptist, so you don't need to be a JW.
I'm a Christian.
Oh, you're not an American Baptist anymore?
I belong to an American Baptist church, but I mean, I don't see that as my religion.
Okay.
That's just the church that I've joined and am serving in. So.
Well, very good. Very good. Yeah.
Someone asked in the private chat, can I ask about your ladyship? What does it mean?
Okay.
So it's a title for someone who is a lady.
Okay.
So, and it's my preferred pronoun.
Oh, your ladyship.
So you can call me your ladyship or my lady, whatever you prefer, really.
AOC removed pronouns from her bio. on
Did
Twitter.
she?
Yeah, people are flipping out. They're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And
That's awesome.
yeah, people are saying that
Do you think
maybe
she's
there's.
pregnant?
There you go. I didn't think that. That was not my first conclusion. But hey, what the heck? What the heck?
Well, I know people were speculating about it recently because of her
Really?
appearance.
Interesting.
I saw a video of her. She looked like hell in it. Like, and I'm not saying that to be rude, but like she looked really stressed out. Like her face was totally puffy. She had these like massive bags. Like she looked like she'd been crying or like just been going through a lot of stress, which it's an election year, no doubt. But then other people were speculating and said that they thought she's pregnant. And I said, oh, that would make sense that she's kind of like puffed up like this. And I guess the rumors have been around, but I thought maybe you would know, have more of an in.
I met AOC before she was AOC. She was, I met her at a reception, a Bernie Sanders reception in Brooklyn that I went to. And it was kind of interesting because that night was like, it was like an all-star night. Like Fiorella from Convo Couch, who I did not know at that time, was there. Multiple people that I've ended up like working with in other spheres were at that meetup. It's kind of weird. And there's a photograph of like AOC speaking and me like sitting behind her, and she was not AOC yet. She was just, there was a bunch of different people that were like Bernie Sanders Democrats that were running for office there. And she was the most charismatic of them. And she wasn't there the whole time. It was like they brought her in to speak and then she was there to kind of shake hands and then leave. And I remember she had like, and people were not calling her AOC. They were calling her Ocasio, I guess. She was like, Alexandra Ocasio or just Ocasio. And she just, I don't know. I introduced myself to her and I said, I'm an RT reporter. And she said, oh, I love Lee Camp. He's so cool. And I said, okay, great. And she said, would you like to get a picture taken with me? And I said, no, I don't think that would help your campaign at all. I don't know. I mean, it was just whatever. I mean, it wasn't a big thing. And she was there and all of that. And then, and then I was blown away when she won the Democratic primary. I'm like, how did that happen? You know? And then I was hoping she would be something good. I went to a few of her town halls. When before the pandemic, there was still some hope that she might be good, which, obviously at this point I'm on other sides of the barricade from her, but but there was still some hope that she might be good. So I went to one of her town halls in her district. I don't live in her district. I live in Brooklyn. She's in the Bronx. But I went to one of her town halls, and what I noticed was that I think I went to two of her town halls, and at each of them, staffers would recognize me and sit next to me every time I went in.
I've been in situations like that too, where you go to an event and people are clearly like, watching you or patrolling you or like keeping themselves, around you in case there's an incident or something.
Right. And
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, these weren't like huge events, but there would always be somebody who'd walk up to me and be like, you're Caleb Maupin, aren't you? Oh, good. It's so good to meet you. I'll be sitting next to you today. And was there a question you were going to ask her? Maybe I could, and they're like managing you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's weird. And it's like a compliment. I'm like, wow, I'm this recognizable. I'm this famous that you know who I am. But I guess, and then for a while,
much of a potential issue too.
Yeah. Jose Vega, from Schiller Institute, he just made it like a career to just disrupt AOC to the point that they would not let him into her events. He's like banned from her events, even though he actually lives in her district, right?
Interesting.
And then the other thing I noticed is there were like Republican hecklers at the event, but I almost wondered if the Republican hecklers were like paid by her, because it was like part of what she was doing. It was almost like she was like kind of inciting the crowd against them. And it was almost like this kind of like weird, like it was almost like, and they weren't disrupting her so much. They were just kind of being rude. And it was like she could like, and like she could kind of incite the crowd against them. And it almost made me wonder if it was set up that way, or maybe she was just so used to dealing with it, but it was like, Like at one point, I think that the clip that I saw, the moment that I remember from the town hall was like, she was urging everyone to fill out their census cards, right? And she was like, everyone must fill out their census cards, whether you're documented or undocumented, you've got to fill out your census cards and all of this, because we need to get as much representation in the federal government as possible, and it's based on the census and all of this, because Republicans don't want to count all the people that are here. And so then the heckler shouts, "Why would they want to do that?" And then she responded, "Because they're racist." And then there was like a standing ovation, like, "Ooh, yeah," and it was like,
she's a real evil woman.
It just seemed a little.
It's interesting that she used to go by Ocasio because she has her last name hyphenated from both of her parents, right?
Well, she used to go by Sandy, from what I understand. For Alexandria, she was Sandy. Everyone knew her as Sandy, right? And shout out to Garland Nixon, by the way. Garland Nixon is in the chat, so Garland Nixon is our good.
Garland, yeah, he was at the conference I went to.
Yes, he was in Portland.
I liked his talk. It was good.
Yes. But AOC, she was known as Sandy. She was a Times Square bartender, and everyone knew her as Sandy, right? And then they made a big deal about the fact that she grew up in, like, her family owned like a deli in the Bronx, but they actually had like a mansion in Long Island, right? What I always thought was weird about AOC, and I called this out at the time, was that there is no social media footprint at all, right? Like, there is nothing, right? And that is, they wiped her before she became somebody, right? She, all through high school, all through college, no Facebook, no nothing. And then there's little drops every so often. Like, there was this video of her dancing, and then there was like a public speaking contest she won in high school. But it's like, they wiped her. They wiped her digital footprint. And every so often they'll drop little things to be like, yes, she did exist before she went to Congress. But yeah, that is very, very odd. You know what I'm saying?
It's probably for the best, because she's already so, like, the way she communicates sometimes is so divisive. Like just what you mentioned a few moments ago, it's not surprising that they would need to, like, if she actually hired decent PR people, they would advise her to like purge her social media, because no doubt she was running her mouth if she had it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no like Wayback Machine or anything. There's no like, I mean, I feel like somebody at the top made a deal with her that we're going to make it so you can't find anything. Speaking of which, did you did see the clip of her reacting to Tulsi Gabbard, since we're talking about how she looks recently? Do you want to see that?
No, I haven't seen that.
All right. Well, here we go.
I'd love to react to it with you.
Go ahead. This is her reaction to Tulsi being chosen.
And we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information. And Russia loves it, loves her.
And I actually think, almost more than Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard's appointment is devastating. And Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, as much as she says that she's an anti-war person, she's not.
Yeah.
She supports very pro-war individuals,
including
abroad.
In Syria.
And let's be very clear, a Tulsi Gabbard nomination is a pro-war nomination globally.
There is so much wrong with this clip. I don't know where to begin. The first thing here,
and we haven't even gotten to Tulsi Gabbard potentially having access to national security information.
Tulsi Gabbard already has access to national security information. Like, that's like, she was a member of Congress, and she was active duty U.S. military. So right there, that's dumb. And then these pro-war people she's linked to are countries the U.S. is trying to overthrow. Like, you're anti-war for your own country, and you want to have dialogue with these other countries. Like, it's like, well, it would be like saying that, if somebody went to Vietnam during the Vietnamese War, they're not anti-war because they met with the Vietnamese and they're in the war. It's like, that's what anti-war people did, is they went there and they tried to hear the other side of the story. And like, it's just like this new thing.
I mean, that's the thing. They rely on people to be as vapid as they are. There's no analysis. CIA. Her eyes are crazy.
Really?
As well, in that clip alone, look at that. Look at those eyes.
They are big eyes. Those eyes are very big.
Crazy
That is true.
eyes. Crazy eyes. And Joy Reid, I don't know. She's a mess too.
Those are
It's
very, very big eyes.
unfortunate, like that. But yeah, you know what? I'm looking at her now too, and like I wouldn't be surprised if she's. I don't want to speculate, but I mean, I don't know.
You see a trance state there? Do you see substance abuse? I mean, what are you alluding to?
I don't know. I think she might have been pregnant.
Oh, okay. Well,
So she's
we'll
put
know
on
soon
weight.
enough. We'll know soon enough.
The way she's put on weight, but I mean, maybe she's had an abortion or something. I don't know, or a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we will know if that's the case because it's not really our business. But just, I don't know. I don't know. She's.
Well, she has that. She's still with that boyfriend that she has. I don't follow it.
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know she
Yeah,
had
I know she lives with a man, so it's likely to happen at some point. And
Interesting.
but I wonder with her career and like everything she has going on, and just also she's just. I don't know, such an evil liberal woman. I don't know. Like, I look at her and she's like, so much of what's wrong with women nowadays. Just.
I mean, I was so hopeful when she won that there was just some hope of something good, but it was just
Why
nothing.
were you? I mean, if
Nothing.
there was, she wouldn't have won in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, she hasn't done anything. I can't think of a single thing that she's done that I that I think was a good thing. I mean, it's just, just a lot of bluster. I feel like Shama Sawant in Seattle, as much as I'm critical of her, she is like what honest AOC would look like. If AOC was really honest about what she believed, she'd look like Shama Sawant. Shama, I have my differences with. She's a Trotskyite, but like Shama did stuff. Like she opened up the city hall to the Black Lives Matter protesters, and she's like spoken at labor union rallies and walked the picket lines, and and she's Shama Sawant, her politics are not mine, but she honestly believes in her politics. AOC,
Yeah,
is
she has
just
a history. Yeah, but AOC is just no substance.
Yeah, completely.
No substance.
No substance. Absolutely.
Diet AOC.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share with our
I
audience?
just came on to say I didn't know what we would talk about, but good
Okay, you're full of wisdom about a lot of different topics, et cetera. So, well, let's talk again after the big drop. You'll love the big drop. You'll love the big
look
drop.
forward to hearing about it, indeed.
All right.
And I wish you all well.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Terry is very cool. So now we're bringing on Gabby. Hey, Gab.
Hey, what's
Gabs.
up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm
Good to
good.
see you.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm good.
You always have your hammer, sickle, Patriot, or Muerte.
Oh yeah, it's in my this is my bed literally, so it's like right here, like because I drew that when I was going through like really rough patch in life, I guess, and it kind of made me happy, and I was like, it made me feel like because it's like literally your country or death, patria or muerte, like, and it made me feel so proud to be like Latina, so and being like a brown woman in the U.S. in the West, and I was like, I feel so proud. So that's why I was like, I feel good. I feel like I could go through life just But yeah, no, just I was just thinking about like this weekend, like a lot of, and I don't want to be like it's my crybaby thing, but it's like I noticed like me having a thick accent, like people
You
really
don't have
like.
a thick accent.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently I do. So
No, you
like
don't.
people,
You sound like it just sound like
exactly, and then they're like, "You sound so
you have a
freaking
Chicago accent.
Mexican,"
You sound like
and
somebody
I'm
from
all like,
Chicago.
"Yeah," and then I was like, "Wait, do I?" And then I was like questioning. I'm like, and then I was like, "Damn, I need to reanalyze," But like, I'm like, so what, like, And then like people call you out for like the smallest things, and so I'm like, people are just so unhappy with themselves that they like kind of nitpick at you, and I'm all like, okay, I kind of could care less. But yeah, apparently, yeah, people were, well, I don't want to say who exactly, but like just let's just say like it's been forever. So it's like one of those things like, okay, so what if I have a Mexican slang accent? Like, am I supposed to sound like this? Like, I don't know.
You
But
sound Chicago to me. I mean,
right. So then I was just
yeah.
like, okay, but yeah, no, I was just thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what, like, how do you? I can't change it, you know. That's how I am. That's how I talk. Okay, I'm sorry, like, I can't talk proper sometimes. Okay, but
I think we
yeah,
can. I think you just sound like Chicago to me.
okay.
But let me ask you, how's your son doing?
He's good. We had it was raining today, so it was kind of like one of those things. I was gonna ask you, so since Trump won, I know they said he wants to defund education, and I'm kind of worried about that. But then I'm like, you know, CPS schools never funded children anyway, you know.
Well,
And then the CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union, I don't know what's gonna happen with that, because it's like one of those things where like, and I'm not trying to put teachers under the bus, but like there's teachers that don't even do their teaching, you know, and they want to get benefits, and then they give them a lot of benefits and they don't even do their job. And I was like in school when there was a Chicago strike in 2012, and that's when it's been ongoing since that. And it's like fast forward like what, 10 years now, over 10 years, and they're still having this issue. So it's like, you know, and I don't see a difference, you know. And but since Trump said the defunding of education, like I agree in the fact of him like saying like the LGBTQ plus like cannot be involved in schools. Like he wants to fix that and put in schools and blah blah blah. But like I don't understand the rest, what he's trying to do.
Well, he wants to get rid of the Federal Department of Education, I
Yeah,
guess.
okay.
That's
Okay.
what it is, right? Because the thing is, most education funding is on a local level anyway, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and that's why it's so unequal across America, because it's just wherever you are, right? It's whatever
Right.
district you live in, whatever state, whatever. So, but he wants to get rid of the Federal Department of Education, and he's apparently really going to do it. And you know, that's a big deal. That's a very
Right.
big bureaucracy that's going to change. But you know, education in America, we're very bad at it. There's no question about it. However, my criticism has been whenever we try to fix education in America, we always make it worse, you know, and if privatizations, charter schools, and all that was going to fix it, it would have worked by now, because we've been doing that since the 80s and it hasn't gotten better.
Right.
I can't say I'm thrilled about Trump dismantling the Department of Education. I'm not. But at the same
Right.
time, you know, I'm not like, is this the end of the world? I don't think it is. You know what I mean? I think this is
Yeah.
just, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is going to be a weird 4 years. I'll just tell you that much. And our work as CPI is going to be really important, because we have the ability. There's going to be so much division and tension,
Right.
not just within the ruling class and the people aligned with Trump and the people against it, but also within the Trump camp. I mean, Marco Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard are going to be in the same administration. We're going to have the ability to really have an impact. So I'm excited
Right.
for the next 4 years, but I honestly don't know what we're going to get.
Right.
I thought Trump's 4 years as president was better than Biden's 4 years, but that's not saying much. I mean, there was a lot that certainly didn't go well during those years. But yeah. But how's
Yeah.
everybody? Oh, what were you going to say? Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just wondering because like okay, I'm glad he has Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. Okay, but like yeah, Marco Rubio, I heard nobody likes him. He's unpopular, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe for the the politicians, they probably love him, but um, it's just one of those things where like okay, people are just so mad with Trump. Like, okay, Trump's old cabinet, that was a poor choice he did. And I think he's realized that. Or I mean, I don't know, I'm not Trump, but like I think he's gonna do like differences, and then it's like one of those things like I can't even critique of like the good he's done, because like people are like, oh my god, is this what you think of Trump? Like, do you really support him? And like, you can't say anything nowadays and have a discussion with people. You could, but like it's a light conversation. And I actually lost friends like from this whole election. Like they stopped talking to me because I said, I understand people's sentiment of him winning is terrible, but like he's announced that he's gonna do a little here and there. And for me, the main thing was the ending of the war, and then now it's like Biden is trying to start war, and like, it's like, what do you want? Do you guys want our tax money to go to that war that's not ours, or do you want it to be in our country, saving our, our infrastructure, our everything that we need to be fixed here? Like, what do you guys want? So it's like, I don't understand that mindset. And like, I think, I don't know, just me like reading more like the past 4 years, and like doing like extra work with myself, and like, and it's like you understand stuff, and like you talk differently. Like I've talked differently from since like 2020 or since like 2018, I was going to those protest cages, and it's like didn't make a difference in my life. And that's why I'm like, I feel so bad for like, younger people, and like even adults that think they're making a difference, right? Protesting for like what? They're gonna protest about Trump. Like, and this is what pisses me off. I'm sorry. I'm like getting so really pissed because all of a sudden people want to be, oh, we can't be for that orange man. And it's like, okay, so what is your other choice? Like, what is your, like, okay, if you say we can't pick him or we shouldn't pick him, okay, what is your alternative? Because I don't think PSL, the Claudia, whatever, Karina, like they're not gonna do anything either. They're other like little AOCs, so it's like, okay, like what other choices do we have? People chose Trump because that's that anti-war sentiment that we have in this country. So it's like, of course, but he's not perfect, but still it's like you gotta pick a struggle here,
You saw the video of the epic, amazing thing that AOC did over the week, or that PSL did over the weekend, right?
There's a lot. Like there's one that they were like, they're gonna go January 20th to disrupt the inauguration, and they were
boy.
they were talking about, I was like listening, and I'm like, dude, this is terrible, and I'm so glad I'm out of that camp.
No,
Like,
this is the news from Boston this weekend.
Action to the
Oh,
National
yes.
Men's March. This was in Boston today. A group of anti-abortion rights protesters clashing with counter-protesters, with police arresting multiple people. Our Mary Marcos has the latest.
More than 100 men marched against abortion from Planned Parenthood to the Boston Common.
The men came out to support the women that are facing unplanned pregnancies, and we're here to speak for the unborn.
Barricades kept at bay the same number of counter-protesters. Supporters of reproductive freedom wearing big red noses and playing circus music to mock their message.
Abortion is health care, and the church and the state have no business telling women what to do with their bodies.
The majority of men believe in women's rights. The majority of men think that their wives and their daughters and their sisters and their mothers have a right to determine what happens to their bodies. And these men apparently don't.
Specialized Boston police units on scene were dressed in riot gear with batons in hand. Demonstrators started to clash as the annual Men's March moved downtown. Boston police say they arrested 9 people on disorderly charges near Kenmore Square.
Yeah, that's the revolution, We're on the brink of World War III with Russia. Working families are struggling to get by, but there's 100 anti-abortion Catholic dudes that are walking down the street in Boston.
It's both sides. You see, it's both sides. Like I'm in between. Like I'm pro-life, pro-choice. Like I don't know what to pick. Like I don't know, but like I don't think a woman should get an abortion at 6 months. That's already like jeopardizing your health. A woman's like, I don't know. It's just like I think these practices need to change maybe. Like, and I don't disagree women getting an abortion, but like when you're 3 months, when you're in your 3rd trimester, like your baby's fully developed, and like why is this being allowed by Planned Parenthood, and like why are we funding this? And like Planned Parenthood is in poor areas, like literally, like when I look up Planned Parenthood in Chicago, they're all in the freaking low income areas. So it's like, yeah, they're gonna offer abortions to poor people, and then it's like one of those things where like, okay, I this is a culture politic thing, like it's a distraction and stuff. So that's why I like don't really pay attention. And this is what they're doing. Like this is these like little what are they like? I don't even know which groups they are, but like that's what they're doing. They're dressing up as clowns, you know, putting up a show, and then you got the conservative circles that are like protesting like the pro-life, and it's like that is not like, for me it's not important. Important is like, okay, what are we gonna do for the next 4 years, you know, like what's gonna happen to, you know. But it's just it is literally a circus show, so it's like one of those things where like, okay, you know, I think that kind of brings up a discussion of universal healthcare, you know, like abortion goes it back to health, traces back to healthcare. And it's like, yeah, we should be talking about healthcare and the benefits of having a universal healthcare and how it will benefit everybody, not just the few, you know. And it's like that discussion is lost. And it's one of those things like right now it's like everybody at my job is like complaining like, okay, why am I paying for my health insurance if I have a big ass bill to pay? Like the co-payments is like off the charts nowadays. And it's like, and they're like, you know, I can't get seen because I can't afford it. And it's like, of course, and that's the problem. We should be talking and the conversations, but it's always gonna be about abortion rights, and it's always gonna be about different things that are like, yeah, that's part of the healthcare, you know.
Yeah, well, taking
Issue.
things in a little bit of a different direction. Let me ask you, how is the Chicago gang? Ellen was on earlier. I see John in the chat. How's the Chicago gang?
We're good. I mean, like we had a good meetup last time. We have a lot to do here, but like I said, I think I'm glad that we met, you know, the people who were at the last month meetup. It was good, and I made my tamales, so they were pretty good. I don't know. I hope
Yeah,
people like them.
Ethan was also in the chat. Let me give him a shout out.
Oh
Ethan.
yeah, he was awesome. I'm glad he came. And then yeah, who else? Yeah, Ellen was there. Ellie, John McCarthy was there. And then who else was there? I don't know. We were all there, and if I missed somebody, my bad. But like, yeah, we did talk a lot, and we do want to plan a lot. And I'm so happy that like people are willing to do this job that we have to do. You know,
Well,
and
in
it's
the lead up to the convention next summer, we got to have a couple more workshops. We had a great
right.
workshop in the
Yes,
Chicago area,
Caleb.
October.
We want you to do those workshops because you
Yes.
give good information, man, and it's like it's so good that we have this, like, because it's like one of those things where like they're doing the whole PSLs and these other groups are doing the whole. I know Palestine it is important, like these conversations are important, but like it's mostly economics in the U.S. that we need to hyper focus on. It's like a lot of people who are anti-imperialist, you know, I like them, you know, we have good conversations, but then it's like I have this disagreement, and it's one of those things like it's like a saying I always say, like, if you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love somebody else? So it's like, how could you love another country, right? That is, yes, the foreign policies that we implemented has hurt the people over there, and that sucks. But like, how can you not love your own country first? And you gotta love your own country first in order to like love other countries. So it's like, and there's no self-love to it. So it's kind of like I see go hand in hand, like, well, and I noticed a lot of the anti-imperialists, like, you know, people, you know, that I agree a lot with them, but it's like they don't like their own people, and I'm like, this is weird. And I feel like it's like I can't go with that. I can't, like, and I'm gonna be real honest with them, and I'm gonna be real with them. Like, I'm not gonna do that. And it's like, I'm not gonna love other countries if I can't love my own country first and where I come from, you know? Because I used to have that mentality of like, oh, you know, I hate this country, like F the USA and like all this other stuff. And it kind of, I wasn't like happy, you know, in myself. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's somebody who's been waiting a really long time to
Okay.
come on, so I'm going to let him on. But thank you so
Okay.
much, Gabby.
Yeah.
You do great work out there. We'll be in
Yeah.
touch. We're definitely having some
Yeah.
workshops. All my best to your son, to your brother,
Thank
the great
you.
musician, and all of that. So
Yeah.
be in touch. All right. Bye-bye. All right. You've waited a long time, my friend. Mezco, how are you? How are you? You waited a long time. I wanted to make sure I brought you on. How you doing?
Yes, thank you. I'm very well. It's good to start the day in the morning because we have 5 a.m. here in Poland.
Oh, wow. 5 a.m.
Yeah. So I cannot be in the beginning of the program. I will watch later. I think you have a great insight generally, and I watch you, but I don't necessarily agree with everything. But I want to talk about one specific thing that I don't agree.
You're in
But
Poland, so you better not agree with what I say or you'd go to jail, right? I mean, that's the thing. In
Yes,
Poland, if you say things that I say about foreign policy, they put you in jail, right? You don't have freedom of speech. Yeah?
Well, in freedom of speech, it's different. It's not good. But in America, you also have this guy from how his name is Scott Ritter, right? He was
Right, my friend, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they raided his home. So you're anti 5G. Tell us, is that what you want to talk about?
I want to tell about that because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Tell about dangers from radiation exposure from cell phones, Wi-Fi's, mobile cell base, the cell towers. I don't know how to translate that, but you know what I'm.
Yeah, I know what it is. Sure,
and
yeah.
it's interesting topic. I wanted to give a super chat message, but it's too long to explain. Then you would not be you would not understand what I want to message because the exposure limits from radiation from this electronical devices is stricter in China and in Russia and to some degree in the Poland to the 2020 because they lose the limits than in the United States and then in Western Europe. And even there is a the doctorate of philosophy, the pro-Krustin approach, setting exposure standards for telecommunications frequency electromagnetic radiation. This is from 29 by Donald Maish from the University of Wollongong, Australia, and he says that part of the I may be cited because it will be easier to understand. He tells that for American public opinion, the Soviet limits of radiation were inspiration and positive model, and that were an obstacle for the American industry. And this is a quote from the book. Howard Johnson, retired staff vice president of product safety for the Radio Corporation of America and a member of several RF technical committees, considered it an urgent need to set a federal public health RF standard. RF means radio frequency standard, because of the increasing popularity of the Russian standard in the USA. This was causing a growing level of public opposition to setting of RF facilities. Johnson mentioned one example where RSA had difficulty in obtaining permits for a satellite Earth station on the West Coast due to public opposition. And this was because the higher standards for radiation protection in the USSR. And even in that book is a quote from Comar. This is a committee on men and radiation. This is some committee in IAEA. This is this organizations of electronic engineers, and it says the American delegates have learned that Soviet biological studies often possess an important feature lacking in Western studies: ecological validity, what might be called experimental modeling that were more nearly resembles the way that RF radiation is encountered by people in the real world.
Well, very good. Well, thank you for letting us know about this issue. I heard that RFK was talking about it, but I really haven't looked into it. But it's good to know.
Yes, you as a CPI can tell that when RFK Jr. will be maybe restricting this radiation levels, you may say that, look, this was in Soviet Union, the radiations level were more strict. So this is an idea that I give to you.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. Well, thank you, and all my best to you. Have a lovely day in Poland. So, beginning of the day, right? So, very good. Talk to you soon. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Great. Well, listen, folks, we have gone for a good 2 hours. And I think I'm going to say goodnight. This was fun. We'll do more of these open streams. I wanted to do one, and it was a fun open stream. We went a good 2 hours, and a lot of different people came on and talked about important stuff. We'll do it again sometime. We'll do it again. Thanks, everybody. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.